Our story begins with Olive Parker, a 32-year-old ambitious and driven marketing executive who resided in the upscale neighborhood of Los Olas in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, not far from the Atlantic Ocean. She was known for her intelligence and charming personality, captivating everyone she met. Olive's dedication to her career was unwavering, and she aspired to climb the corporate ladder and make a name for herself in the marketing industry. In July of 2012, the sun-drenched city of Fort Lauderdale buzzed with excitement as Olive's life took an unexpected turn. As the summer heat intensified, Olive's days were filled with meetings at the prestigious marketing firm she worked for, where she tirelessly strategized and executed successful campaigns for renowned brands such as Coca-Cola and Nike. Despite her professional success, Olive's personal life was not without its challenges. Married to Adam Parker, a charismatic and enigmatic man, she told friends their seemingly idyllic relationship, which had once been filled with love and happiness, was now full of cracks and nearing its end. Olive's friends and colleagues noticed a change in her demeanor. The once vibrant and confident woman seemed to be slowly fading away, replaced by a shadow of her former self. Whispers of a troubled marriage and a controlling husband circulated, with rumors of infidelity and deceit. Olive, however, remained steadfast in her commitment to maintaining harmony and balance in her life. Little did Olive know that her pursuit of success and happiness would lead her down a treacherous path. As we dig deeper into the case, we will uncover the shocking events that unfolded, ultimately leading to Olive's tragic demise. It was a scorching hot and humid day in the summer of 2012, the kind of day where the air felt heavy and suffocating. The residents of Los Olas, a posh neighborhood in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, sought refuge from the searing heat in their air-conditioned homes. On this particular steamy night, the tranquility of the neighborhood was shattered by an eerie commotion emanating from Olive Parker's apartment. The sound of screams and shouting pierced the air, causing concern among the neighbors. One neighbor, Patty Reyes de Leon, a retired schoolteacher known for her nosiness, couldn't ignore the disturbing sounds any longer. She peered through her lace curtains, her curiosity piqued. As she strained to see what was happening, she noticed the front door of Olive's apartment was ajar. Mrs. Reyes de Leon's heart raced as she contemplated the possibility of danger. She hesitated for a moment, weighing the risks of getting involved. But her conscience won over, and she decided to investigate. With a sense of trepidation, Mrs. Reyes de Leon stepped out of her air-conditioned sanctuary and made her way towards Olive's apartment. The oppressive heat seemed to intensify as she approached the door, adding to her unease. As she entered the apartment, a wave of stifling heat hit her, causing sweat to bead on her forehead. The living room was dimly lit, the curtains drawn shut, creating an atmosphere of gloom and mystery. Mrs. Reyes de Leon's eyes were immediately drawn to the corpse sprawled on the floor. It was Olive Parker, her once vibrant and ambitious neighbor. The shock of the sight overwhelmed her, and she let out a shriek. Olive lay motionless, her body twisted in an unnatural position. Her once lustrous hair now clung to her sweat-soaked face. The room was filled with an eerie silence, broken only by the distant hum of the air-conditioning unit. Mrs. Reyes de Leon's hands trembled as she reached for her phone to dial 911. The dispatcher's voice on the other end was calm and reassuring, but the gravity of the situation hung heavy in the air. Within minutes, the police arrived at the scene, their sirens wailing in the distance. They cordoned off the area, keeping the curious onlookers at bay. Forensic experts meticulously combed through the apartment, collecting evidence and documenting every detail. News of Olive's tragic demise spread like wildfire through the community. The local newspapers and television stations picked up the story, captivating audiences with the chilling details of the mysterious death. Los Olas, once a haven of tranquility, was now engulfed in a cloud of fear and suspicion. Who could have done such a heinous act? Was it someone Olive knew? Or was this a random act of violence that shattered the illusion of safety? The police arrived quickly, showing how serious the situation was. Detective Suarez, who was in charge, and his team carefully looked through the crime scene. They wanted to find any clues that could help them understand how Olive died. The apartment was very clean, which made it even more mysterious. There were no signs that someone broke in. The only sign of violence was Olive's lifeless body on the floor. She had been strangled to death. Detective Suarez started by taking pictures of everything in the apartment. He wanted to make sure he didn't miss anything important. Then, he and his team started searching for fingerprints. They dusted for prints on doorknobs, windows, and other surfaces. They hoped to find a clue that would lead them to the person who killed Olive. While searching, Detective Suarez noticed something strange. There was a broken vase on the floor near Olive's body. He wondered if it had something to do with the crime. He carefully collected the broken pieces and put them in a bag for further investigation. Next, Detective Suarez checked Olive's iPhone and computer. He wanted to see if there were any messages or emails that could be helpful. He found a few text messages from someone named Sophia. Mark seemed angry and jealous. Detective Suarez thought Sophia might be a suspect. Detective Suarez and his team also talked to Olive's neighbors. They wanted to know if anyone saw or heard anything unusual on the day Olive died. One neighbor said they heard loud arguing and screaming coming from Olive's apartment. Another neighbor said they saw a man leaving the building around the same time. Detective Suarez asked for a description of the man and made a note of it. As the investigation continued, Detective Suarez knew he had a lot of work ahead of him. He had to analyze all the evidence and interview possible suspects. He hoped that by doing this, he would be able to bring justice to Olive and her family. Olive's husband, Adam Parker, was suspected of being involved in the shocking death of his wife. Adam, 35, was a lawyer who specialized in traffic accidents, a job often referred to as an ambulance chaser. He was known for his smooth talking and ability to convince people to work with him. However, behind his charming facade, Adam had deep-rooted insecurities and feelings of inadequacy. Adam's behavior towards Olive had raised concerns among their friends and family. He was possessive and often displayed signs of jealousy. Friends remembered instances where Adam would become angry if Olive talked to other men at social events. He would constantly check her phone and email, searching for any signs of infidelity. These possessive tendencies had intensified in the months leading up to Olive's tragic death. The police interrogated Adam extensively, hoping to uncover the truth behind Olive's demise. They questioned him about his whereabouts on the day of the incident and his relationship with Olive. Adam claimed to have been at work during the time of the crime, but the police were determined to verify his alibi. Detective Suarez and his team meticulously examined Adam's phone records, searching for any evidence that could support or refute his claims. They also interviewed Olive's colleagues and friends, hoping to uncover any information that could shed light on their troubled marriage. As the investigation progressed, the police discovered a series of text messages between Adam and a mysterious woman. The messages hinted at a secret affair, providing a possible motive for Olive's murder. The police obtained a search warrant for Adam's office and home, hoping to find further evidence to corroborate their suspicions. Inside Adam's office, the police found a hidden compartment in his desk containing love letters and intimate photographs of him and another woman. The discovery of this secret relationship sent shockwaves through the community and added another layer of complexity to the case. The investigation into Olive's murder was far from over. The police had uncovered a web of deceit, betrayal, and jealousy surrounding Adam and Olive's marriage. As they delved deeper into the case, they would soon discover more shocking revelations that would turn this tragic story into a true crime nightmare. Sophia Shingrix, a 28-year-old graphic designer, found herself under the scrutinizing gaze of the police as they delved deeper into the mysterious death of Olive Parker. Sophia, known for her vibrant personality and creative flair, had worked alongside Olive at a prominent marketing agency in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. As the investigation unfolded, detectives discovered a tangled web of secrets and hidden desires. Sophia had always admired Olive's intelligence and ambition,
but beneath her friendly facade, jealousy and resentment simmered. The police were determined to uncover any motive Sophia may have had for harming Olive. During the interrogation, Sophia's nervous demeanor betrayed her inner turmoil. She hesitantly admitted to a secret romance with Olive's husband, Adam Parker. The revelation sent shockwaves through the investigation, adding
a new layer of complexity to the case. Adam, a successful lawyer known for his charm, had been leading a double life. Behind closed doors, he engaged in a clandestine affair with Sophia, betraying the trust of his devoted wife. The police were astounded by this revelation as it shed light on the possible motive behind Olive's tragic end. Sophia's involvement in the affair only intensified the suspicion surrounding her. Could her feelings of jealousy and resentment have driven her to commit the ultimate act of betrayal? The detectives meticulously combed through phone records, text messages, and email exchanges, searching for any evidence that could link Sophia to the crime. The investigation took a dramatic turn when the police uncovered a series of passionate and explicit messages exchanged between Sophia and Adam. These messages revealed a toxic love triangle filled with deceit and manipulation. The detectives realized that Sophia's motive may have been fueled by a desire to eliminate Olive, removing the obstacle standing between her and Adam. As the investigation continued, the police dug deeper into Sophia's background, uncovering a troubled past marred by failed relationships and a history of emotional instability. They interviewed friends, colleagues, and acquaintances, gathering insights into her character and behavior. But the truth remained elusive. The investigation into Sophia's involvement in Olive's death continued, as the police meticulously pieced together the puzzle of this twisted tale. The evidence was mounting, but would it be enough to prove her guilt beyond a reasonable doubt? As the investigation into Olive Parker's tragic death unfolded, the police were determined to leave no stone unturned. Their relentless pursuit of the truth led them to a breakthrough when a curious teenager stumbled upon an abandoned phone in a remote part of Fort Lauderdale. Little did they know that this unexpected discovery would hold the key to unraveling the mystery surrounding Olive's demise. The phone, an outdated model with a cracked screen, was carefully examined by the forensic team. They meticulously extracted every piece of information. The phone's call logs and text messages became the focus of their attention as they sought to uncover any connections to the prime suspects in the case. One particular text chain caught their eye. It was a series of exchanges between an unknown number and Adam Parker, Olive's husband. The messages hinted at a secret arrangement, with Adam offering financial support in exchange for sexual favors. The police were intrigued, realizing that this could be the missing piece of the puzzle they had been searching for. Further analysis of the phone's data revealed a hidden folder containing explicit photographs and videos. These shocking materials depicted Adam having sex with a woman who was not Olive. The woman was later identified as Sophia Shingrix, Olive's co-worker and a person of interest in the case. The police were astounded by this revelation, as it unveiled a web of deceit and betrayal that had been woven behind Olive's back. As the investigation continued, the police pieced together a timeline of events. They discovered that Adam had been paying for an apartment, using Olive's hard-earned money to sustain an illicit affair. However, this apartment apparently was not for Sophia, but someone else. This revelation painted a chilling picture of deceit and manipulation, as Adam had not only betrayed his wife, but also exploited her financially. The police were determined to bring justice to Olive Parker and expose the truth behind her tragic demise. With the newfound evidence from the abandoned phone, they were inching closer to unraveling the dark secrets that had plagued Olive's seemingly idyllic marriage. The investigation into the tragic death of Olive Parker took an unexpected turn when a new person of interest emerged. Ethan Laroney, Olive's ex-boyfriend, became the focus of the police's attention. Ethan, 34 years old, was known for his charming personality and adventurous spirit despite his struggles with drug addiction. Ethan and Olive had a tumultuous relationship in the past, and even though they had broken up, Ethan still held a deep attachment to her. He longed for a chance to win her back and couldn't let go of their shared history. But it was also revealed that Ethan had been secretly financially supported by Adam Parker, Olive's husband, in exchange for sex. The police were intrigued by this connection and wanted to uncover any motives or connections Ethan might have had to Olive's murder. They delved into Ethan's background, speaking to friends, family, and acquaintances to gather more information. One person who knew Ethan well was his childhood friend, Dean Fring. Dean described Ethan as a troubled soul who often found solace in his relationship with Olive. He recalled an incident where Ethan had expressed his desire to be with Olive again, even though she was happily married to Adam. The police also discovered that Ethan had been involved in a series of petty crimes in the past, including solicitation, mostly related to his drug addiction. They reached out to local law enforcement agencies and reviewed surveillance footage from nearby stores to see if Ethan had been in the vicinity of Olive's apartment on the day of her death. To their surprise, The police found a witness who claimed to have seen Ethan near Olive's apartment complex on the day of the crime. The witness, a store clerk, remembered Ethan because he had come into the store that day to buy cigarettes. This testimony provided a crucial piece of evidence that placed Ethan in the vicinity of the crime scene. As the investigation continued, the police obtained a search warrant for Ethan's residence. They meticulously combed through his belongings, looking for any evidence that could link him to Olive's murder. They found a diary in which Ethan had written about his deep love for Olive and his desire to be with her again, even if it meant having illicit sex with her husband. The police also discovered a hidden stash of drugs in Ethan's apartment, confirming his ongoing struggle with addiction. They wondered if his drug use had clouded his judgment and led him to commit such a heinous act. The investigation into Ethan's involvement in Olive's murder was still ongoing, and the police were determined to uncover the truth. They knew that finding concrete evidence would be crucial in bringing justice to Olive and her grieving family. In a shocking turn of events, the truth behind Olive Parker's tragic murder was finally revealed. After an extensive investigation, the police identified Olive's possessive and insecure husband, Adam Parker, as the perpetrator of this heinous crime. Adam's toxic combination of jealousy and possessiveness led him to commit the unforgivable act of murder, shattering the lives of those who knew and loved Olive. As the investigation unfolded, the police discovered that Adam's controlling behavior towards Olive had escalated in the months leading up to her murder. Friends and family members reported instances of Adam monitoring Olive's every move and isolating her from her loved ones. This pattern of possessiveness raised red flags for those who knew them well. Furthermore, the police uncovered a series of incriminating text messages and emails exchanged between Adam and Sophia Shingrix, Olive's co-worker. These messages revealed a secret affair between Adam and Sophia, adding another layer of complexity to the case. The arrest of Adam Parker sent shockwaves through the community, leaving both friends and neighbors in disbelief. The once idyllic neighborhood of Los Olas became a backdrop for a real-life crime drama, as reporters flocked to the scene to capture the aftermath of this tragic event. This case serves as a stark reminder of the dangers of possessiveness, jealousy, and control in relationships. It is a call to action for society to address the issue of domestic violence and support those who may be trapped in abusive situations. The trial that followed Olive Parker's tragic murder in July of 2012 was a significant event. The courtroom was filled with anticipation as the prosecution, led by District Attorney Laird Hopkins, presented a compelling case against Olive's possessive and insecure husband, Adam Parker. During the trial, the prosecution meticulously laid out a timeline of events, presenting evidence that highlighted Adam's toxic obsession with Olive. They showcased text messages, phone records, and witness testimonies that painted a vivid picture of Adam's jealousy and controlling behavior. The defense attorney, Mark Brinsley Coe, fought hard to cast doubt on the evidence, suggesting alternative explanations and attempting to create reasonable doubt in the minds of the jurors. Throughout the trial, Olive's family sat in the courtroom, their hearts heavy with grief and anger. They listened intently to every word spoken, hoping for justice to be served. The media coverage of the trial was extensive, with reporters from prominent news outlets such as CNN and the New York Times providing daily updates on the proceedings. After days of deliberation, the jury finally reached a verdict. The tension in the courtroom was palpable as the forepersons stood up to deliver the verdict. We, the jury, find the defendant, Adam Parker, guilty of first-degree murder. The foreperson announced, their voice echoing through the courtroom. The gasps of disbelief and tears of relief filled the room as Olive's family and friends embraced each other, finally finding a semblance of closure. The judge, presiding over the case, sentenced Adam Parker to life in prison without the possibility of parole. The courtroom fell silent as the weight of the sentence sank in. Adam, once a successful lawyer, would now spend the rest of his life behind bars, paying for the heinous crime he committed. The impact of the trial and its outcome reverberated through the community of Fort Lauderdale and beyond. Olive's tragic story served as a reminder of the dark side of human nature and the devastating consequences of possessiveness and jealousy. It sparked conversations about domestic violence and the importance of recognizing the signs of an unhealthy relationship. After the shocking revelation that the prosecutor and the defense attorney were involved in a secret sexual relationship, the trial of Adam Parker was deemed invalid. Olive's family, already burdened by the loss of their beloved daughter, felt betrayed by the very system that was supposed to deliver justice. They were left questioning the integrity of the legal system and wondering if they would ever find closure for Olive's tragic end. Sophia Shingrix, deeply remorseful for her role in the affair, sought therapy to help her cope with the guilt she carried. She realized that her jealousy and resentment towards Olive had clouded her judgment, leading her down a path she never intended to take. Sophia vowed to honor Olive's memory by making amends and striving to be a better person. As the community tried to move forward, the impact of the trial's invalidation continued to reverberate. People couldn't help but question the credibility of the justice system and wonder if the truth would ever be fully revealed. The case garnered attention from advocacy groups and sparked a larger conversation about the need for transparency and accountability within the legal system. Meanwhile, Adam Parker, once again a free man awaiting retrial, retreated from the public eye. He faced the harsh reality of his actions and the consequences that awaited him. The community kept a watchful eye on him, eager to see justice served and Olive's memory honored. And so, the story of Olive Parker's fatal attraction comes to a close. It serves as a chilling reminder of the depths to which jealousy and possessiveness can drive a person. As we reflect on this tragic tale, let us remember the importance of nurturing healthy relationships and seeking help when faced with toxic situations. Our story begins with Tanya Dubenko, a 27-year-old manager of a chain of local convenience stores, was known for her unpredictable behavior. Despite her occasional burst of tears and psychotically furious outbursts, Tanya possessed a dreamy demeanor that captivated those around her. Her family and friends described her as a woman with grand aspirations, yearning for a life filled with love and success. In the days leading up to her untimely demise, Tanya was filled with excitement and anticipation, eagerly awaiting her honeymoon in the Bahamas. Tanya's wedding day was a picturesque affair, set against the backdrop of the stunning Canadian Rockies. The ceremony took place at the historic Fairmont Palazzo Hotel, a renowned venue known for hosting extravagant events. The grandeur of the occasion was further enhanced by the presence of notable guests, including local celebrities and prominent figures from Calgary's high society. The wedding reception was a lavish affair, with an opulent feast prepared by one of Calgary's most renowned chefs. The tables were adorned with exquisite floral arrangements created by the renowned local florist, Sarah Richardson. The atmosphere was charged with excitement and joy as the guests danced to the tunes of the popular band, Duran Duran, who were at the height of their fame in 1984. However, amidst the celebration, a sense of unease lingered in the air. Tanya's erratic behavior throughout the day had raised eyebrows and whispered concerns among the attendees. Some speculated that the pressure of the wedding had taken its toll on her, while others whispered about a troubled past that haunted her. As the evening progressed, Tanya's mood seemed to darken. She retreated to a secluded corner of the reception hall, tears streaming down her face. Concerned friends and family members attempted to console her, but their efforts were in vain. Tanya's anguish seemed impenetrable, as if she carried a burden that no one could understand. Little did anyone know that this would be the last time they would see Tanya alive. In the early hours of the following morning, tragedy struck. Tanya Dubenko was found lifeless in her hotel room, her dreams of a blissful honeymoon shattered. And so, the investigation begins. What led to Tanya's untimely demise? Was it a case of foul play or a tragic accident? In the heart of Calgary, a city known for its picturesque landscapes and vibrant culture, a shocking crime unfolded on a day that was meant to be filled with joy and celebration. Tanya Dubenko, a 27-year-old manager of a chain of local convenience stores, was about to embark on a new chapter of her life as a married woman. Little did she know that her wedding day would be marred by tragedy, leaving a community in shock and searching for answers. Tanya, described as a woman with a mix of unpredictable behavior and a dreamy demeanor, had captured the attention of those around her. Her family and friends knew her as someone with grand aspirations, yearning for a life filled with love and success. As the days leading up to her wedding approached, Tanya's excitement and anticipation were palpable. The couple had planned a romantic honeymoon in the Bahamas, a destination that symbolized the beginning of their journey together. But fate had a different plan in store for Tanya and her newlywed husband, Rick Dubenko. Just 2 hours before they were scheduled to depart for their dream honeymoon, tragedy struck. Tanya's lifeless body was discovered in the honeymoon suite, her head brutally smashed against the shower wall, forever shattering the dreams and hopes of a promising future. Rick, who had returned to the suite to retrieve his forgotten wallet, was the one to stumble upon the gruesome scene. The shock and horror of this discovery overwhelmed him, leaving the community divided on his reaction. Some witnesses claimed that Rick appeared strangely calm and collected, while others insisted that he was visibly shaken and distraught, unable to comprehend the magnitude of the tragedy that had befallen his beloved bride. As the investigation into Tanya's untimely demise unfolded, the authorities meticulously combed through every detail, leaving no stone unturned. The search for the truth behind Tanya Dubinko's tragic end continues. As investigators delve into the case, they uncover a web of secrets and hidden motives that could hold the key to unraveling this chilling mystery. The police swiftly responded to the distressing scene at the honeymoon suite, determined to uncover the truth behind the tragic death of Tanya Dubinko. Led by seasoned investigators, Detectives Greg Johnson and Pierre Rambo, the team meticulously examined every inch of the crime scene, leaving no stone unturned. The suite, once a place of joy and anticipation, had transformed into a chilling sight, with bloodstains marking the walls like a macabre canvas. The investigators discovered that Tanya had met a violent end, her life cruelly taken by blunt force trauma to her head. The murder weapon, shockingly, was believed to be the shower wall itself. This revelation sent shockwaves through the tight-knit community of Calgary, Alberta, as they grappled with the horrifying reality that such a heinous crime could occur in their midst. As the investigation unfolded, the police meticulously combed through the suite, collecting and cataloging every piece of evidence. They meticulously documented each detail, creating a comprehensive record of the crime scene. The room was meticulously photographed, capturing the bloodstains, the shattered glass, and the haunting stillness that hung in the air. Detectives Johnson and Rambo interviewed witnesses, friends, and family members, piecing together the events leading up to Tanya's untimely demise. They retraced her steps from the moment she woke up on that fateful day to the tragic discovery of her lifeless body. The investigators examined Tanya's personal belongings, searching for any clues that might shed light on the motive behind this senseless act of violence. News of the murder spread through the city, captivating the attention of the public. The local newspapers, such as the Calgary Herald, dedicated coverage to the case, with headlines that screamed of a shocking crime that had shattered the tranquility of the city. Television news programs, like CBC News, dedicated segments to the investigation, urging anyone with information to come forward. The police, driven by a relentless pursuit of justice, worked tirelessly to solve the case. They consulted forensic experts, analyzed fingerprints, and conducted interviews with potential suspects. The investigation took them down a labyrinth of leads and possibilities, each one meticulously examined and evaluated. As the days turned into weeks, the city of Calgary remained on edge, anxiously awaiting answers to the questions that haunted their collective consciousness. Who could have committed such a heinous act? Was it a crime of passion, or was there something more sinister at play? The investigators remained tight-lipped, their determination unwavering, as they continued to piece together the puzzle that was Tanya Dubinko's murder. The primary suspect in the gruesome crime that shocked the city of Calgary in August 1984 was none other than Rick Dubinko, the newlywed husband of the late Tanya Dubinko. As the investigation unfolded, all eyes turned to Rick, a 28-year-old man of reserved demeanor and few words. The police, driven by their determination to uncover the truth, delved into Rick's life, searching for any hidden secrets that might shed light on the tragic events that unfolded on that fateful day. Rick Dubinko, a man with a calm exterior that belied the storm within, found himself under intense scrutiny. The detectives, led by the seasoned investigators Detectives Johnson and Rambo, interrogated Rick extensively in an effort to discern any signs of guilt or involvement. The interrogation room, a sterile and dimly lit space, became the battleground where truth and deception clashed. During the grueling questioning, Rick maintained his innocence, his voice steady and unwavering. The detectives probed into his background, meticulously piecing together the puzzle of his life. They discovered that Rick had grown up in a small town on the outskirts of Calgary, where he had led a relatively unremarkable existence. He had attended the local high school, graduating with average grades and no notable achievements. In the months leading up to the ill-fated wedding, Rick had been working as a junior accountant at a prominent firm in downtown Calgary. His colleagues described him as a diligent worker, always punctual and meticulous in his tasks. However, his reserved nature had made it difficult for them to truly know him on a personal level. As the detectives dug deeper, they uncovered a few peculiar details about Rick's life. They discovered that he had recently purchased a life insurance policy, naming Tanya as the beneficiary. This revelation raised eyebrows and fueled speculation about Rick's motives. Was he driven by a desire for financial gain? Or was there another, more sinister reason behind his actions? As the investigation into the tragic death of Tanya Dubinko unfolded, a new suspect emerged, adding another layer of complexity to the case. This potential suspect was none other than Frank Pelly, Jr., a well-respected hockey coach at the local high school and the father of the deceased bride. Frank's involvement in this chilling crime stemmed from a shocking revelation that took place just moments before the wedding ceremony. It was on that fateful day in February of 1984 when Frank stumbled upon an illicit affair between Rick Dubinko, Tanya's newlywed husband, and Maria Janet Bosco, one of the bridesmaids. The discovery of this affair left Frank seething with anger and a burning desire for revenge. Eyewitnesses recounted the scene with vivid detail, describing Frank's face turning red with fury as he confronted the illicit couple. The tension in the air was palpable as Frank's booming voice echoed through the halls of the wedding venue. The fallout from this explosive confrontation reverberated through Calgary, Alberta. Rumors spread like wildfire, fueled by the local media's insatiable appetite for scandalous stories. The incident quickly became news, capturing the attention of residents as they sipped their Tim Hortons coffee and flipped through the pages of the Calgary Herald. As the police delved deeper into the case, they meticulously examined Frank's possible motives and involvement in Tanya's murder. They uncovered a man consumed by anger and a burning desire for justice. Frank's love for his daughter was undeniable, but did this love extend to the unthinkable act of murder? Investigators combed through Frank's personal life, interviewing friends, family, and colleagues. They discovered a history of heated arguments and moments of explosive rage. Frank's reputation as a passionate hockey coach was juxtaposed with this darker side, leaving many wondering if his fiery temperament had crossed a line. The investigation into Frank's possible involvement in Tanya's murder continued, with detectives painstakingly gathering evidence and piecing together the puzzle of that fateful day. The truth remained elusive, hidden beneath layers of secrets and emotions. As the community held its breath, waiting for answers, one thing became clear: the search for justice in the case of Tanya Dubinko's murder was far from over. The quest to uncover the truth would require perseverance, determination, and a relentless pursuit of justice. In the ongoing investigation into the shocking murder of Tanya Dubinko, a new suspect emerged, casting doubt on the previously considered individuals. Maria Janet Bosco, the bridesmaid and alleged lover of Tanya's husband, Rick Dubinko, found herself under the intense scrutiny of the police. Maria, a 25-year-old woman entangled in a web of forbidden love and deceit, became a person of interest in this perplexing case. Maria Janet Bosco, a young woman with a captivating presence, had long been a close friend of Tanya's. Their friendship blossomed during their high school years, where they shared countless memories and dreams for the future. However, as the investigation unfolded, it became evident that their friendship had taken a dark turn. Sources close to the investigation revealed that Maria had been engaged in an illicit sexual affair with Rick Dubinko, Tanya's newlywed husband. The revelation of this clandestine relationship sent shockwaves through the tight-knit community of Calgary, Alberta. Rumors of their secret rendezvous spread like wildfire, leaving many questioning the true nature of their involvement. It was on the day of Tanya's wedding, just moments before the ceremony, that Frank Pelly, Jr., Tanya's father, and a respected hockey coach at the local high school, stumbled upon Rick and Maria engaged in sex. The sight of his daughter's husband betraying her trust ignited a fire within Frank, fueling his desire for revenge. As the police turned their attention to Maria, they sought to understand the depths of her motives. Was she driven by a consuming love for Rick, or was there something more sinister at play? Detectives meticulously combed through her personal belongings, uncovering a series of love letters exchanged between Maria and Rick, revealing the intensity of their forbidden romance. During the interrogation, Maria's demeanor varied, leaving the investigators puzzled and uncertain. At times, she appeared remorseful, her eyes welling up with tears as she recounted the events that led to Tanya's untimely demise. Yet, in the next moment, her gaze hardened and her words became guarded, hinting at a hidden truth that she was unwilling to reveal. As the investigation continued, the police were determined to uncover the truth behind Tanya Dubinko's murder. They left no stone unturned in their pursuit of justice, meticulously examining each piece of evidence and questioning every potential suspect. After an exhaustive investigation spanning several months, the truth behind Tanya Dubinko's tragic death finally came to light. The shocking revelation that her own husband, Rick Dubinko, was responsible for her murder sent shockwaves through the community of Calgary, Alberta. Rick Dubinko, a 28-year-old man of seemingly calm demeanor, had evidence pointing to his guilt. The motive behind this heinous crime was rooted in a web of deceit and infidelity. It was discovered that Rick had been engaged in an illicit affair with Maria Janet Bosco, one of the bridesmaids in Tanya's wedding party. According to Rick's account, Tanya confronted him with a knife, leaving him with no choice but to defend himself. In a fit of rage and self-preservation, he claimed to have struck Tanya with a fatal blow to the head, using the shower wall as the murder weapon. The grisly scene that awaited Rick when he returned to the honeymoon suite to retrieve his forgotten wallet would forever haunt the memories of those involved in this chilling case. Throughout the investigation, detectives meticulously combed through the evidence, leaving no stone unturned. The police discovered crucial details that solidified Rick's guilt, including forensic evidence linking him to the murder weapon and witnesses who testified to his volatile relationship with Tanya. In the aftermath of this tragic event, questions still lingered. What could have driven a seemingly calm and reserved man like Rick Dubinko to commit such a heinous act? How did Tanya's discovery of the affair push him to the brink of violence? These questions may never be fully answered, leaving us to reflect on the dark complexities of human nature and the devastating consequences that can arise from secrets and betrayal. On February 13, 1984, the Calgary Police Department made a significant breakthrough in the investigation into the murder of Tanya Dubinko. After weeks of tireless work and relentless pursuit of justice, they finally apprehended the prime suspect, Rick Dubinko, Tanya's husband. The arrest took place in the early hours of the morning as the sun began to rise over the city. Under the watchful eyes of the law, Rick was taken into custody without incident. The scene outside the Dubinko residence was filled with a sense of both relief and sadness as Tanya's family and friends gathered to witness the moment that would mark a turning point in their quest for justice. As news of the arrest spread, the city of Calgary was captivated by the shocking revelations surrounding the case. The story entered the local newspapers, such as the Calgary Herald and the Calgary Sun, as well as local TV news outlets like the CBC and CTV. The community was left reeling from the realization that a seemingly ordinary couple had been harboring such dark secrets. The arrest of Rick Dubinko sent shockwaves through the tight-knit community of Calgary. Residents, still reeling from the recent Winter Olympics held in their city, were forced to confront the harsh reality that even in the aftermath of a successful international event, tragedy could strike close to home. The juxtaposition of the joy and celebration of the Olympics with the somberness of Tanya's murder created a palpable sense of unease among the residents. The Dubinko family, although relieved by the arrest, knew that their journey towards healing was far from over. They would forever carry the weight of Tanya's loss, but they were determined to honor her memory and find a way to move forward. In February of 1984, the courtroom became the stage for the dramatic conclusion of the tragic tale surrounding the murder of Tanya Dubinko. The prosecution, led by seasoned attorney prosecutor Helga Portescu, presented a compelling case against the prime suspect, Rick Dubinko. With a mix of emotions, the victim's family watched as justice was sought for their beloved daughter. Prosecutor Portescu meticulously laid out the evidence, painting a vivid picture of Rick's guilt. She called upon witnesses who testified to Rick's affair with Maria Janet Bosco, the bridesmaid, and the motive it provided for Tanya's murder. The courtroom was captivated as the prosecution presented phone records, hotel receipts, and eyewitness accounts, all pointing to Rick's involvement in the heinous crime. Defense attorney Sully Daniels, a skilled lawyer known for his ability to cast doubt, countered the prosecution's argument. He questioned the reliability of the witnesses, suggesting they had their own motives for testifying against Rick. Daniels argued that the evidence presented was circumstantial and did not definitively prove Rick's guilt. The trial lasted for weeks, with both sides passionately presenting their case. The victim's family, their hearts heavy with grief, anxiously awaited the verdict that would determine the fate of their daughter's murderer. The media surrounding the trial was intense, with reporters from local newspapers and television stations providing updates on the proceedings. Finally, on a fateful day in February, the jury reached a decision. The courtroom fell silent as the verdict was read aloud. The judge, swayed by Rick's claims of self-defense, handed down a sentence that left many stunned. Rick Dubinko was found guilty of manslaughter, but due to the circumstances surrounding the crime, he received a lenient sentence of only 2 months in prison. The decision sparked a wave of controversy and debate. Some felt that justice had not been served, questioning the validity of the self-defense claim and the leniency of the sentence. The victim's family, torn between relief that Rick would face some form of consequence and anguish over the perceived injustice, struggled to find closure. As the trial came to a close, the effects of the verdict rippled through the lives of those involved. The victim's family, forever altered by the loss of their daughter, grappled with their perception of the justice system. The media coverage surrounding the trial slowly faded away, but the impact of Tanya Dubenko's tragic death would forever be etched in the memories of those who followed the case. In the aftermath of the trial, life moved on for those involved in this tragic tale. Rick Dubenko, the man responsible for Tanya's untimely death, served his 2-month sentence behind bars. The walls of the correctional facility became his new reality, a stark reminder of the consequences of his actions. Meanwhile, Tanya's family, forever changed by the loss of their beloved daughter, found solace in their shared memories and the support of their community. They leaned on each other for strength, finding comfort in the knowledge that justice had been served, albeit with a lenient sentence. The scars left by Rick's violent act would forever haunt them, but they vowed to honor Tanya's memory by advocating for victims of domestic violence. The investigation team, led by Detectives Johnson and Rambo, continued their relentless pursuit of justice. Although the trial had concluded, their work was far from over. They were determined to ensure that cases like Tanya's would not be forgotten, and that perpetrators of such heinous crimes would be held accountable. The echoes of Tanya's murder reverberated through the lives of those involved in the investigation. The team meticulously documented every detail, creating a comprehensive case file that would serve as a reminder of the brutality and tragedy that occurred in February of 1984. Their dedication to seeking the truth was unwavering, and their efforts garnered attention from the media and the public alike. As life moved on for those involved, the scars left by this tragic tale would forever shape their future endeavors. Rick Dubenko, haunted by the weight of his actions, would carry the burden of his crime for the rest of his life. Tanya's family, determined to honor her memory, would continue to advocate for victims of domestic violence, ensuring that her story would not be forgotten. And the investigation team, driven by their pursuit of justice, would remain vigilant, ensuring that cases like Tanya's would always be remembered. As we close this chapter of True Crime Case Files, we reflect on the chilling tale of Tanya Dubenko's murder. Set against the backdrop of a wedding gone awry, this story serves as a stark reminder of the darkness that can lurk beneath the surface of even the most joyous occasions. The consequences of betrayal and unchecked emotions can lead to devastating outcomes, forever altering the lives of those involved. The first victim was Dana Carlisle, an 84-year-old woman who had a remarkable life story. Born in Flint, Michigan, in 1920, Dana grew up in a working-class family during the Great Depression. She had a natural talent for nursing and enrolled in the Army Nurse Corps at the age of 18. She was deployed to Europe during World War II, where she witnessed the horrors of war firsthand. She was one of the few nurses who survived the Battle of the Bulge, the deadliest battle in American history. She received several medals for her bravery and service. After the war, Dana continued her nursing career and worked in various hospitals and clinics across the country. She married her high school sweetheart, Frank Carlisle, and had 2 children, Mark and Lisa. She was a devoted mother and grandmother, and always had a smile on her face. She loved to read, knit, and watch her favorite show, The Golden Girls. She was also an avid fan of the Detroit Tigers, and never missed a game. Dana moved to the Raleigh Meadows nursing home in 2003 after her husband passed away from a heart attack. She wanted to be closer to her daughter, Lisa, who lived in Tampa. She quickly made friends with the other residents and the staff, who admired her cheerful attitude and her compassion for others. She was a leader and a mentor, and often organized activities and events for the nursing home. She had a dream of creating a safe and loving community for the elderly where they could enjoy their golden years with respect and dignity. But Dana's dream would be shattered one July day. Another elderly victim who had trusted their life to the staff of the Raleigh Meadows nursing home, located in a quiet suburb of Pinellas Park. Someone had a sinister plan to end their lives, and the motive would be shocking. It was a scorching day in July of 2004, when a gruesome discovery was made at the Raleigh Meadows nursing home in Pinellas Park, Florida. The nursing home was a peaceful and comfortable place for the elderly, surrounded by palm trees and flowers. But on that day, a dark shadow fell over the facility as one of its residents was found murdered in her room. The victim was Dana Carlisle, an 84-year-old woman who had lived a remarkable life. She was a war hero, a nurse, a mother, and a friend to many. She had moved to the nursing home a year ago after losing her husband of 60 years. She had adjusted well to her new home and was loved by the staff and the other residents. She was always cheerful, kind, and helpful, and had a zest for life that was contagious. But someone had snuffed out that life in a brutal and senseless way. There were no signs of forced entry, robbery, or sexual assault. It seemed like a random and motiveless crime that left everyone baffled and terrified. The person who found Dana's body was Robert J. Murkowski, a 91-year-old man who was also a resident of the nursing home. Robert and Dana had become close friends after meeting at a bingo night. They shared a lot of interests and hobbies such as reading, gardening, and watching reruns of Matlock and Happy Days. They often had dinner together and chatted for hours. But his was shattered when he went to visit Dana in her room that morning. He knocked on her door, but there was no answer. He opened the door and saw her lying on her bed, motionless. He thought she was sleeping and gently called her name. But when he got closer, he realized she was not breathing. He touched her face and felt how cold she was. He screamed and ran to get help. The staff arrived soon after and confirmed that Dana was dead. Robert was in shock and could not stop crying. He told the staff everything he knew about Dana and how much he cared for her. He had no idea who would want to hurt her or why. He was heartbroken and felt guilty for not being able to protect her. But Robert was not the only one who was grieving. The entire nursing home was in mourning and in fear. Dana was the first victim, but not the last. More residents would be killed in the next 2 weeks. The killer was still at large and had a twisted agenda. Who was behind these murders and what was their motive? The answer would shock everyone and expose a web of lies, greed, and revenge. Within minutes of the discovery of Dana Carlisle's body, the police were on the scene at the Raleigh Meadows nursing home in Pinellas Park, Florida. The nursing home was a modern and spacious facility with a capacity of 120 residents. It had a reputation of providing quality care and comfort for the elderly, but on that day, it became the site of a horrific crime that would shock the community. The lead investigators of the case were Detective Jackson and Detective Rokeby, two seasoned and respected detectives from the Pinellas County Sheriff's Office. They had worked together for over a decade and had solved many high-profile cases, such as the infamous Clearwater serial killer, who had terrorized the city in 2002. They were known for their professionalism, dedication, and intuition. They arrived at the nursing home and were greeted by the staff and the residents, who were visibly shaken and distraught. They were escorted to Dana's room, where they found her lying on her bed, covered with a white sheet. They lifted the sheet and saw her pale and lifeless face. She looked peaceful, as if she had died in her sleep. But the detectives knew better. They noticed a small puncture mark on her arm and a syringe on the floor. They also found a bottle of pain pills on her nightstand with a prescription label that read, Dana Carlisle, OxyContin, 10 milligrams. Take one every 4 hours as needed for pain. The detectives quickly realized that Dana had been killed by an overdose of pain pills, a method that was unusual and suspicious. They wondered who had access to her medication and why they would want to harm her. They also wondered if there were any other victims or if Dana was targeted for a specific reason. They had a lot of questions and few answers. They decided to interview the staff and the residents and to review the security footage and the records of the nursing home. They hoped to find some clues and to catch the killer before they struck again. But they were too late. Dana was the first victim, but not the last. The killer was still on the loose and had a sinister plan. The investigation of the murder of Dana Carlisle, an 84-year-old resident of the Raleigh Meadows nursing home in Pinellas Park, Florida, took a shocking turn when the police identified the first suspect. He was Robert J. Murkowski, a 91-year-old man who was also a resident of the nursing home. He was not only Dana's friend, but also her secret lover. Their affair had started in 2001 when they were both married to other people. They had kept their relationship hidden from their spouses, their families, and their friends. Robert's wife, Helen, had died in 2002 after a long battle with Alzheimer's disease. She had been living in a different nursing home, where Robert had visited her every week. He had felt guilty for cheating on her, but he could not resist his feelings for Dana. He had hoped to start a new life with her after Helen's death. But Dana's husband, Frank, had outlived Helen by a year. He had suffered a heart attack in 2003 and had passed away in his sleep. He had been a loving and faithful husband to Dana, and a proud father and grandfather to their children and grandchildren. He had been unaware of Dana's affair and had trusted her completely. Dana had moved to the Raleigh Meadows nursing home in 2003 after Frank's death. She had wanted to be closer to her daughter, Lisa, who lived in Tampa. She had also wanted to be with Robert, who had moved there a few months earlier. They had finally been free to be together, without any secrets or lies. They had been happy and had enjoyed their time at the nursing home. They had also been sexually intimate many times and had expressed their love for each other. But their happiness was short-lived. On July 15, 2004, Dana was found dead in her room, killed by an overdose of pain pills. The police arrived at the scene and questioned Robert as a witness. He had been the one who had discovered her body and had called for help. He had claimed that he had gone to see her that morning, as he usually did, and had found her unresponsive. He had said that he had been shocked and saddened by her death, and that he had no idea who would want to harm her. But the police were not convinced by his story. They had noticed some inconsistencies and contradictions in his statements. They had also found some evidence that linked him to the crime. They had found his fingerprints on the syringe and the bottle of pain pills that had been used to kill Dana. They had also found a note in his room that read, "I'm sorry, Dana. I love you, but I can't live without you. Forgive me." They accused him of killing Dana out of jealousy or desperation. They speculated that he had feared that she would leave him, or that he had wanted to end their suffering. They interrogated him for hours, trying to get confession or a motive. But Robert remained calm and composed, and denied any involvement in the murder. He said that he loved Dana and that he would never hurt her. He said that the note was a suicide note that he had written a long time ago but had never acted on. He said that the fingerprints were a coincidence and that he had no access to the pain pills. He said that he was innocent and that someone else had killed Dana. But who and why? The police had no other suspects or leads. Was Robert really the killer, or was he a scapegoat? Was this a crime of passion or a cover-up? Was there more to this case than met the eye? The answer would shock everyone and reveal a dark and twisted plot that involved corruption, conspiracy, and revenge. The murder of Dana Carlisle, an 84-year-old resident of the Raleigh Meadows nursing home in Pinellas Park, Florida, was a shocking and tragic event. But it was only the beginning of a nightmare that would haunt the nursing home for weeks. The killer was not done yet and had a list of targets. The next victim was Robert J. Murkowski, a 91-year-old man who was also a resident of the nursing home. He was not only Dana's friend, but also her secret lover. Robert was under suspicion for Dana's murder, but he maintained his innocence. He said that he loved Dana and that he would never hurt her. He said that someone else had killed her and framed him. He said that he had no motive, no access, and no evidence. He said that he was a scapegoat and that the real killer was still on the loose. But the police did not believe him. They thought that he had killed Dana out of jealousy or desperation. They thought that he had feared that she would leave him, or that he had wanted to end her suffering. To them, he was the killer, and they had caught him. But they were wrong. Robert was not the killer, but the next victim. He was found dead in his bed, also overdosed on pain pills, just 2 days after his arrest. His death confirmed the suspicions of the detectives. It was clear that these deaths were not suicides, but cold-blooded murders. The investigation took a sinister turn as the police realized that they were dealing with a serial killer within the nursing home. A serial killer who had a list of targets and a twisted agenda. A serial killer who was not done yet and who had identity that would shock everyone. The breakthrough in the investigation of the murders of Dana Carlisle and Robert J. Murkowski, two residents of the Raleigh Meadows nursing home in Pinellas Park, Florida, came on a stormy night when the police searched the nursing home for clues. They stumbled upon a hidden stash of secret recordings that revealed a dark and disturbing truth. The recordings were made by Carly Burgley, a 38-year-old single mother of three who worked as an aide at the nursing home. She had a secret hobby that involved recording the intimate and sexual moments of the residents without their consent or knowledge. She had installed hidden cameras and microphones in their rooms and had captured their most private and personal moments, including sex. She had then sold these recordings online, mainly to Japan, where there was a high demand for sexual material involving the elderly. She had made an estimated $15,000 from this illegal and immoral activity and had no remorse or guilt. But her scheme had backfired when she had recorded Dana and Robert. She had not known that they were lovers and had been surprised by their affair. She had also been afraid that they had discovered her secret and had threatened to expose her. She had panicked and had decided to kill them before they could ruin her. She had used her access to their medication and had injected them with a lethal dose of pain pills. She had then planted the evidence to make it look like Robert had killed Dana, and then himself. She had thought that she had gotten away with it and had continued her explicit recordings. But she had not counted on the police, who had found her stash and had traced it back to her. They had exposed her as the killer and as the mastermind behind a sick and twisted business. In the midst of the investigation into the chilling series of murders at the Raleigh Meadows nursing home, a breakthrough occurred. The focus shifted to Carly Burgley, a 38-year-old single mother of three and an aide at the nursing home. As the police interrogated her, a complex and troubled past began to unravel. Carly's story was one of desperation and a relentless desire to provide for her family. It was revealed that she had a history of drug addiction, a battle she fought fiercely while trying to maintain a semblance of normalcy. However, her involvement in the production and distribution of sexually explicit recordings added a sinister layer to her already troubled life. During the interrogation, Carly's emotions were palpable. Anger, fear, and regret danced across her face as she struggled to maintain composure. The weight of her actions bore down on her, and she knew that the consequences would be severe. The detectives pressed her for answers, seeking to unravel the truth hidden beneath her troubled exterior. The investigation took a dark turn as the police delved further into Carly's life. They discovered a web of connections, linking her to a network of individuals involved in the production and distribution of secret sexually explicit materials, specifically of the elderly. It was a world shrouded in secrecy, operating under the radar of law enforcement. As the media caught wind of the case, news blared with sensationalism. The local newspaper, the Pinellas Park Gazette, dedicated coverage to the shocking revelations, captivating the community. As the investigation continued, the detectives meticulously pieced together the puzzle, uncovering the truth behind the series of murders. The case would go down in history as one of the most shocking and disturbing crimes to rock Pinellas Park. After months of investigation, the police finally cracked the case of the nursing home murders. The killer was none other than Carly Burgley, a 38-year-old aide who worked at the Raleigh Meadows nursing home. She was arrested on July 29, 2004, and charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder and 1 count of attempted murder. Carly Burgley had a dark secret that she was desperate to hide. She was involved in a lucrative but illegal business of making and selling sexually explicit recordings of the elderly residents to Japan. She used hidden cameras and microphones to capture the intimate moments of the unsuspecting victims. The first of her targets was Dana Carlisle, an 84-year-old former nurse who served in World War II. Dana was a beloved figure at the nursing home, known for her kindness and compassion. She had a secret romance with Robert J. Murkowski, a 91-year-old widower. Carly Burgley saw them as an opportunity to make more money and recorded their sexual encounters. However, Carly's scheme was almost discovered by Dana. Carly panicked and decided to silence Dana by overdosing her on pain pills. She staged the scene to look like a suicide and hoped to escape suspicion. But Robert, who found Dana's body, was heartbroken and suspicious. He told the police that Dana would never kill herself and that he suspected foul play. Carly realized that Robert was a loose end and decided to eliminate him as well. She used the same method of overdosing him on pain pills and made it look like another suicide. But the police were not convinced. They noticed the similarities between the two deaths and launched a thorough investigation. They found traces of Carly's fingerprints and DNA on the pill bottles and the victims' bodies. They also discovered her hidden stash of recordings and traced her connection to a Japanese website, karaishasexy.gp. The police arrested Carly Burgley and had charged her with 2 counts of first-degree murder and several counts of invasion of privacy, extortion, and fraud. They had also seized her recordings and had contacted the authorities in Japan to track down the buyers. She claimed that she was driven by financial desperation and that she loved her family. She said that she regretted her actions and asked for forgiveness. But the police and the victims' families were not moved by her words. They said that she was a cold-blooded killer who preyed on the vulnerable and betrayed their trust. The courtroom drama unfolded as the trial of Carly Burgley, the accused murderer of the Raleigh Meadows nursing home killings, reached its climax. The prosecution, led by the relentless prosecutor Jane Carolborg, presented a compelling case against Burgley. With attention to detail, Carolborg painted a vivid picture of the events that unfolded in the sweltering summer of July 2004. The trial, held in the Pinellas Park Courthouse, drew significant local media attention. Journalists from local newspapers, such as the Pinellas Tribune, were eager to report on the sensational case. The families of the victims, Dana Carlisle and Robert J. Murkowski, sat anxiously in the gallery, hoping for justice to be served. The prosecution's case relied heavily on forensic evidence and eyewitness testimonies. Expert witnesses, including renowned medical examiner Dr. Samantha Collins, testified about the cause of death and the presence of pain pills in the victims' bodies. The prosecution also presented phone records and surveillance footage from the nursing home, which placed Burgley at the scene of the crimes. Defense attorney Janelle Lavrov, known for his fierce advocacy, fought tirelessly to protect his client's rights. Lavrov argued that the evidence against Burgley was circumstantial and lacked a direct link to the murders. He questioned the credibility of the witnesses and raised doubts about the motives attributed to Burgley. Finally, after careful deliberation, the jury reached a verdict. The judge, Honorable Paul Thompson, announced that Carly Burgley was found guilty on multiple counts of murder. Gasps filled the courtroom as the families of the victims embraced each other, finding solace in the knowledge that justice had been served. As Burgley was led out of the courtroom in handcuffs, the media frenzy intensified. News outlets across Tampa Bay reported on the trial, dissecting the evidence and analyzing the motives behind the killings. The case became a cautionary tale, highlighting the need for increased security measures in nursing homes and the potential dangers of hidden secrets. In the aftermath of the trial, the lives of all those involved were forever changed. The shocking series of murders that took place at the Raleigh Meadows nursing home in Pinellas Park, Florida, in July of 2004 left a lasting impact on the community and beyond. Journalists from across the Tampa area flocked to Pinellas Park, eager to report on the sensational details of the trial. The local newspaper, the Pinellas Park Gazette, dedicated coverage to the trial with headlines like "Justice Served," "Burgley Convicted of Murder," and "The Burgley Trial. A community's healing begins." The impact of these horrific crimes extended beyond the courtroom. The Raleigh Meadows nursing home, once a place of care and comfort, became infamous in the community. The residents and their families were left questioning the safety and security of nursing homes across the country. The tragedy prompted a conversation about the need for stricter regulations and oversight in elder care facilities. In response to the murders, the Raleigh Meadows nursing home implemented a series of security measures to prevent future tragedies. The facility installed state-of-the-art surveillance cameras, increased staff training on recognizing signs of abuse or neglect, and implemented stricter visitor policies. These changes aim to restore trust within the community and ensure the safety and well-being of the residents. As the years passed, the wounds inflicted by these heinous crimes slowly began to heal. The victims' families found solace in knowing that justice had been served, while the community rallied together to support one another through the difficult process of healing. The memory of the Rowley Meadows nursing home murders remains a somber reminder of the need for vigilance and compassion in caring for our elderly population. In this episode of True Crime Case Files, we delved into the chilling series of murders that struck the Rowley Meadows nursing home. The lives of Dana Carlisle and Robert J. Murkowski were tragically cut short by Carly Burgley, a single mother driven by desperation and a dark secret. As we reflect on this harrowing tale, let us remember the victims and the resilience of those who survived. Stay tuned for more gripping true crime stories on True Crime Case Files. Maggie Lewin, a warm-hearted and hospitable woman, was a 45-year-old housewife who took great pride in her role as a mother to her two children, Mocha and Tucker. Married to local dentist Dr. Dean Lewin DDS, Maggie dedicated herself to maintaining the perfect household. However, beneath her cheerful exterior, Maggie yearned for excitement and fulfillment beyond the confines of domesticity. Desperate to escape the monotony of her everyday life in Elgin, Illinois, she found solace in the local women's book club. The book club, known as the Literary Ladies, was a close-knit group of women who met every Tuesday evening at each of their houses. Led by the charismatic and enigmatic Linda Bernardino Scalco, the club provided an escape from the mundane reality of their suburban lives. They discussed everything from classic literature to contemporary bestsellers, with a particular love of the novelist Joyce Lehman. They loved to share their thoughts and opinions over cups of steaming coffee and plates of homemade sugar cookies. Maggie, with her insatiable thirst for literary adventure, quickly became an active member of the book club. She relished the intellectual discussions, the camaraderie, and the opportunity to step out of her comfort zone. The club became her sanctuary, a place where she could explore her hidden desires and dreams. Little did Maggie know that her involvement with the Literary Ladies would lead her down a dark and treacherous path. As the days grew colder in January 1993, a sinister plot began to unfold within the confines of the book club. Secrets, jealousy, and betrayal simmered beneath the surface, threatening to shatter the illusion of harmony. On a fateful day, January 23, 1993, with the weather bleak and cold, Maggie's life came to a tragic end. Her body was discovered in her own bathroom, brutally beaten to death with a claw hammer. It was Karen Evans, Maggie's closest friend and next-door neighbor, who made the horrifying discovery. Karen, a petite woman with a heart-shaped face, auburn hair, and a heart of gold, had gone over to Maggie's house for their regular Saturday morning coffee and chat session. Little did she know that this visit would forever change her life. As Karen entered the house, she immediately noticed something was amiss. The air felt heavy with an unspoken tension. The usual warmth and laughter that filled the air during their weekly get-togethers were replaced by an eerie silence. Concerned, Karen called out for Maggie, but there was no response. She made her way towards the bathroom. As Karen made her way up the stairs, her heart pounding in her chest, she noticed a faint smell of iron in the air. The bathroom door stood ajar, casting an eerie glow onto the hallway. With trembling hands, she pushed open the door, and what she saw would haunt her forever. Maggie's lifeless body lay sprawled on the cold tile floor, her once vibrant eyes now vacant and lifeless. Blood stained the walls, and the claw hammer, the murder weapon, lay beside her. Upon opening the bathroom door, Karen's worst fears were realized. Karen's initial reaction was one of shock and disbelief. She couldn't comprehend the brutality of what she was witnessing. Panic surged through her veins as she frantically dialed 911, her voice trembling as she relayed the grisly scene to the dispatcher. News of the murder spread like wildfire through the tight-knit community of Elgin. The town was gripped with a sense of unease, as neighbors locked their doors and whispered about the possibility of a killer lurking among them. On that fateful winter day of January 23, 1993, tragedy struck the quiet town of Elgin, Illinois. The murder of Maggie Lewin, a beloved housewife and mother, sent shockwaves through the community, leaving everyone in disbelief. The police, led by Detective Carl Bledsoe, wasted no time in launching a thorough investigation into this heinous crime. Arriving promptly at the crime scene, the police were met with a chilling sight. The bathroom, once a place of tranquility and cleanliness, now bore the grim evidence of a brutal attack. Bloodstains splattered across the walls, and floor told a story of violence and terror. It was clear that Maggie had been mercilessly beaten to death with a claw hammer, a weapon that had been turned against her in her own home. Detective Bledsoe and his team meticulously combed through every inch of the crime scene, leaving no stone unturned. They meticulously collected any potential evidence, ensuring that no detail went unnoticed. Fingerprints were carefully lifted, blood samples were taken, and any possible evidence was meticulously cataloged. As the investigation unfolded, the detectives began to piece together the last moments of Maggie's life. Interviews with friends and family revealed that she had been an active member of a local women's book club. Could there be a connection between her involvement in the club and her untimely demise? The detectives delved deeper into the lives of the book club members, scrutinizing their backgrounds and relationships. They discovered that tensions had been simmering beneath the surface, hidden behind the facade of friendship. Petty jealousies, secret affairs, and whispered rumors plagued the seemingly innocent lives of these women. The media, hungry for a sensational story, descended upon Elgin, amplifying the already palpable tension in the air. News outlets like the local newspaper, the Elgin Courier, and the television station, WGN-TV, covered the case extensively, eager to capture every twist and turn. The town, once known for its peaceful, boringly Midwestern charm, became a hub of speculation and intrigue. Days turned into weeks, and the investigation continued to unfold. Detective Bledsoe analyzed the evidence, sifting through countless leads and alibis. The pressure to solve this case weighed heavily on his shoulders as the community anxiously awaited justice for Maggie Lewin. Linda Bernardino-Scalco, a 61-year-old local librarian and esteemed leader of the Women's Book Club, found herself at the center of suspicion in the shocking murder of Maggie Lewin. Known for her bookish exterior, sharp intellect, and extensive knowledge of literature, Linda had always presented herself as a respected member of the community. However, as the investigation unfolded, a hidden side to Linda's life began to emerge, casting doubt on her innocence. The Women's Book Club, once thought to be a gathering of literary enthusiasts, turned out to be far more than meets the eye. Behind closed doors, this seemingly innocent group transformed into a secret society of female sexual exploration, engaging in clandestine activities such as swinging and orgies that shocked the conservative and very Midwestern community of Elgin, Illinois. The members of the club, including Linda and Maggie, indulged in a world of forbidden sexual desires, where erotic boundaries were pushed and inhibitions were cast aside. As the investigators delved deeper into Linda's background, they discovered a trail of secrets and hidden rendezvous. The evidence pointed to a complicated web of relationships and encounters that seemed inconceivable in the quiet suburban town. The police meticulously examined phone records, uncovering late-night calls and cryptic messages exchanged between Linda, Maggie, and the other members of the book club. The investigation revealed a complex network of desire and betrayal, where passion and jealousy intertwined. The motive behind Maggie's brutal murder remained elusive, leaving investigators puzzled. Linda's demeanor during the interrogations only added to the enigma surrounding her. At times, Linda, who hid a passionate and deeply sexual nature, displayed flashes of anger, vehemently denying any involvement in the crime. Yet, in other moments, she exuded an eerie calmness, as if she held the key to a dark secret that could unravel the entire mystery. As Detective Carl Bledsoe and his team continued to piece together the puzzle, they found themselves entangled in a web of deceit and desire, where nothing was as it seemed. With each new lead, the truth seemed to slip further away, leaving the investigators and the community desperate for answers. Karen Evans, a close friend and neighbor of Maggie Lewin, became the focus of the investigation as the second suspect in the murder case. Known for her friendly and cheerful demeanor, Karen appeared to be the epitome of suburban normalcy. However, behind closed doors, a darker side of Karen was revealed. During the course of the investigation, it was uncovered that Karen and Maggie had a sexual relationship within the Women's Book Club. While this revelation added a new layer of complexity to the case, it also shed light on a potential motive for the crime. Karen also admitted to feeling jealous of Maggie's sexual encounters with Linda Bernardino-Scalco, the leader of the book/secret sex club. The police interrogated Karen extensively, carefully observing her reactions and demeanor. They sought to uncover the truth behind Maggie's murder and determine Karen's involvement, if any. In the interrogation room, Karen's emotions ranged from anger to sadness, as she struggled to come to terms with her feelings of jealousy and betrayal. The investigators probed deeper, questioning Karen about her relationship with Maggie and the dynamics within the book club. As the interview progressed, Karen revealed that she had developed strong feelings for Maggie over time. She admitted to feeling a sense of possessiveness and resentment towards Linda, who had also engaged in sexual activities with Maggie. Karen's jealousy had intensified, leading to a growing tension between the three women. The investigators delved into Karen's background, seeking any possible connections to the crime. They discovered that Karen had a history of emotional instability and had previously sought therapy for her jealousy issues. This revelation added another dimension to the case, as the police considered the possibility of Karen's emotions spiraling out of control. Furthermore, the investigators uncovered evidence that Karen had been researching ways to deal with jealousy and anger. They found books and articles on self-help, anger management, and relationships in her possession. These findings raised suspicions about Karen's state of mind and her potential involvement in Maggie's murder. As the investigation continued, the police meticulously examined Karen's alibi and cross-referenced it with witness testimonies and physical evidence. They also analyzed Karen's phone records, seeking any communication that could link her to the crime. Every detail was scrutinized in their pursuit of the truth. The case of Maggie Lewin's murder had taken a complex turn, with Karen Evans emerging as a key figure in the investigation. The police were determined to uncover the truth behind Maggie's untimely demise and determine Karen's role in the shocking crime. The investigation into the murder of Maggie Lewin took an unexpected turn as new evidence emerged, providing a glimmer of hope for the dedicated team of detectives. On a frigid January day in 1993, the police made a breakthrough that could potentially crack the case wide open. The weather, a bone-chilling cold that gripped Elgin, Illinois, played a crucial role in this significant discovery. It was on January 27th, when the temperature plummeted to a freezing -10 degrees Fahrenheit, that a key piece of evidence was uncovered. Detective Carl Bledsoe and his team meticulously analyzed the data from various sources, including local meteorological records and eyewitness testimonies. It was during their investigation that they stumbled upon a witness who had been in close proximity to Maggie's house on the night of her murder. Howard Johnson, a resident of the neighboring street, recalled hearing a loud commotion emanating from Maggie's house at around 9:30 p.m. He had been outside, shoveling the snow that had accumulated during the day, when he heard what sounded like a heated argument followed by a series of thuds. Detective Bledsoe immediately recognized the significance of Mr. Johnson's account. The freezing temperatures that night had caused the freshly fallen snow to preserve the footprints left behind by anyone who had been near the crime scene. The detective and his team rushed to Maggie's house, carefully combing through the snow-covered ground for any signs of footprints. Their efforts paid off when they discovered a set of distinct footprints leading away from Maggie's house and towards the nearby park. The footprints were carefully measured and documented, revealing the precise stride length and shoe size of the individual responsible for Maggie's murder. The police compared these footprints to the shoe sizes of the prime suspects, Linda Bernardino Scalco and Karen Evans. The results were shocking. While Linda's shoe size did not match the footprints, Karen's shoe size was an exact match. This revelation sent shockwaves through the investigation team, raising questions about Karen's potential involvement in the crime. With this crucial evidence in hand, the detectives intensified their interrogation of Karen, scrutinizing her every word and reaction. The pressure mounted as Karen's initial calmness gave way to moments of unease and anxiety. The investigation was now on a knife's edge, with the truth hanging precariously in the balance. In the ongoing investigation into the murder of Maggie Lewin, a new suspect emerged, Dr. Susan Cheong, a 42-year-old dentist and the newest member of the Women's Book Club. Dr. Cheong, known for her aloof demeanor and mysterious past, had become a person of interest in this chilling case. Dr. Cheong's personal life was shrouded in secrecy, with little known about her background or motivations. However, the police uncovered some intriguing details that may shed light on her possible involvement in this heinous crime. One key piece of information that came to light is that Dr. Cheong did not engage in the sexual activities that took place within the book club. While other members indulged in secret liaisons, Dr. Cheong remained detached, keeping her personal life tightly guarded. Another intriguing aspect of this case was Dr. Cheong's connection to a man named Dr. Dean Lewin. It had been revealed that Dr. Cheong had broken the rules of the book club by engaging in sex with a man, none other than Dr. Lewin, a fellow dentist, who happened to be Maggie Lewin's husband. This revelation raised eyebrows and sparked speculation about the extent of Dr. Cheong's involvement in the unraveling of the book club's secrets. Had she told her lover about his wife's secret sex life? As the police interrogate Dr. Cheong, they carefully observed her reactions and demeanor. Every word, every gesture was analyzed for any signs of guilt or involvement in this heinous crime. She admitted she had told Dean about his wife's dealings and the book club's secret. Might this be the breakthrough the investigators desperately need? The shocking truth behind the murder of Maggie Lewin, a seemingly ordinary housewife from Elgin, Illinois, had finally been unveiled. After a thorough investigation, it was revealed that the murderer was none other than Dr. Dean Lewin DDS, Maggie's own husband and a local dentist. The motive behind this heinous crime was a toxic combination of jealousy and desire. Driven by his intense longing for his wife and enraged by her alleged betrayal, Dr. Lewin confronted Maggie in the bathroom of their home on that fateful day in January of 1993. The details of the confrontation are chilling. In a fit of anger, Maggie admitted that yes, she had engaged in sexual relationships with the members of her women's book club, a secret gathering that turned out to be a lesbian swingers group. This revelation pushed Dr. Lewin over the edge, and he resorted to brutal violence, wielding a claw hammer to mercilessly beat his wife to death. The police meticulously pieced together the evidence, uncovering a web of deceit and hidden desires. The investigation revealed that Dr. Lewin had discovered his wife's secret through Dr. Susan Cheong, a fellow dentist and the newest member of the book club. Dr. Cheong had broken the rules of the club by engaging in a sexual relationship with Dr. Dean Miller, to whom she divulged the secrets of the book club and Maggie's infidelity. The arrest of Dr. Lewin sent shockwaves through the community of Elgin, as the once respected dentist was exposed as a cold-blooded murderer. The media frenzy that followed the revelation of this true crime case captivated Chicagoland, with newspapers and television stations covering every detail of the investigation and subsequent trial. The trial that followed Dr. Dean Lewin's arrest for the murder of his wife, Maggie Lewin, gripped the community of Elgin, Illinois in January of 1993. The courtroom was filled with anticipation as the prosecution, led by District Attorney Geppetto Zempic, a proud Maltese immigrant, presented a compelling case against the accused. The defense, represented by Defense Attorney C. Alice Powell, sought to challenge the prosecution's narrative, delving into the complex emotions that fueled the murder. Throughout the trial, the courtroom was packed with spectators eager to witness the proceedings. Local news outlets, such as the Elgin Gazette and the Evening Star, provided updates on the trial, ensuring that the community remained informed. The trial became the talk of the town, with people discussing the case over cups of coffee at the popular local diner, Joe's Cafe. The prosecution painted a vivid picture of the crime, emphasizing the brutality of Maggie's murder and the devastating impact it had on her family. They presented evidence, including the claw hammer used as the murder weapon, which had been found hidden in Dr. Lewin's dental office. The defense, on the other hand, sought to humanize the accused, delving into his troubled past and the complex emotions that led to the tragic event. Maggie's family, including her children Mocha and Tucker, sat through the trial, their grief palpable. They listened intently as witnesses took the stand, recounting the events leading up to Maggie's death. The emotional toll on the family was evident as they grappled with the details that emerged during the trial. After weeks of testimony and deliberation, the jury reached a verdict. Dr. Dean Lewin DDS was found guilty of the murder of his wife. The courtroom erupted with mixed emotions, as some felt that justice had been served, while others questioned whether the punishment was sufficient. The sentencing, which took place a few weeks later, saw Dr. Lewin receive a life sentence without the possibility of parole. The impact of the guilty verdict reverberated through the community, leaving a lasting impression on those involved. The Lewin family, along with Maggie's friends and neighbors, were forever changed by the events that unfolded during the trial. As the trial came to a close, the community of Elgin slowly began to heal. The book club, once a source of intrigue and scandal, disbanded, its members scattered. The town returned to its familiar routines, but the memory of Maggie's murder lingered, a reminder of the darkness that can lurk beneath the surface of seemingly ordinary lives. In the aftermath of the highly publicized trial that captivated the community, life slowly began to regain a sense of normalcy for Susan, Karen, and Linda, as well as the other individuals involved in this tragic case. Dr. Susan Cheong, the 42-year-old dentist and newest member of the book club, found solace in her work. She threw herself into her dental practice, dedicating long hours to her patients and honing her skills. Susan's patients, unaware of her connection to the murder case, continued to trust her with their dental needs, allowing her to gradually regain a sense of normalcy. Karen Evans, Maggie's closest friend and neighbor, found solace in the support of her community. Elgin, Illinois, a tight-knit and boringly suburban town, rallied around Karen, offering their condolences and support during her darkest moments. Linda Bernardino Scalco, the 61-year-old librarian and leader of the Women's Book Club, retreated from the public eye. The scandal surrounding the book club's true nature had tarnished Linda's reputation within the community. She resigned from her position at the local library and relocated to a small town in Florida, hoping to start anew. The Lewin children, Tucker and Mocha, sought therapy to cope with the trauma they had endured. Their sessions focused on healing, forgiveness, and finding a way to move forward. Their resilience and strength in the face of tragedy inspired those around them. As the years passed, Elgin, Illinois, a town forever marked by this tragedy, continued to grow and evolve, its residents determined to create a future that honored the memory of Maggie and brought healing to their community. As we conclude this episode of True Crime Case Files, we reflect on the tragic story of Maggie Lewin, whose death unlocked the secrets of a women's book club. This harrowing tale serves as a reminder of the darkness that can lurk beneath the surface of seemingly ordinary lives. In the wealthy town of Norwalk, Connecticut, Barbara Broslow, a devoted stay-at-home mom and wife, aged 36, dedicated her time to caring for her two children, Mikey and Bubbles, and supporting her husband, David Broslow. She took pride in her role as a homemaker, finding joy in her family. Barbara's dreams revolved around creating a loving and harmonious environment for her loved ones. Despite the challenges she faced in her personal life, Barbara maintained a positive outlook, trying to keep the peace in her family. Barbara was a woman of routine. Her days were filled with household chores, cooking delicious meals for her family, and tending to the needs of her children. She had a particular fondness for baking, spending hours in the kitchen perfecting her famous chocolate chip cookies. In March of 1988, Barbara's life took an unexpected turn. Rumors began to circulate in their small suburban neighborhood about a mysterious man who had recently moved to town. His name was Mark Cassavetes, a charismatic and enigmatic figure. Mark was known for his charm and good looks, which made him the center of attention wherever he went. Barbara's path crossed with Mark's when they both attended a local charity event. The chemistry between them was undeniable, and they soon found themselves in tangled rumors in a passionate affair. Gossip of affair became the talk of the town, with whispers and obscene stories spreading like wildfire. Little did Barbara know that rumors of her possible affair would have dire consequences. The events that unfolded in the following months would shatter the tranquility of her suburban life and leave a lasting impact on the community. On the fateful morning of March 12, 1988, the quiet suburban neighborhood of Pinecrest Hills in Norwalk, Connecticut was about to be shaken to its core. As the sun timidly peeked over the horizon, casting an eerie glow on the dew-covered lawns, a neighbor stumbled upon a scene straight out of a nightmare. Patty Myers, a middle-aged woman known for her friendly demeanor and love for gardening, had ventured out for her daily morning walk. As she strolled past the Broslow household, a sense of unease settled upon her. The usually bustling home, filled with the sounds of children's laughter and the aroma of freshly brewed coffee, was eerily silent. Curiosity got the better of Patty, and she decided to investigate further. Approaching the front porch, she noticed the morning newspaper, untouched and abandoned. It struck her as odd, as Barbara Broslow was known for her punctuality and love for staying informed. An unsettling feeling crept up Patty's spine, and she hesitantly pushed open the front door. The air inside the house felt heavy, as if a storm was brewing. Patty cautiously made her way through the familiar rooms, her heart pounding in her chest. And then, she stumbled upon a sight that would haunt her for the rest of her days. In the pristine kitchen, where delicious meals were prepared with love, lay the lifeless body of Barbara Broslow. Her once vibrant eyes stared vacantly into the distance, forever frozen in a state of terror. Blood adorned the pristine white tiles, a stark contrast to the innocence that once permeated the room. Patty's hands trembled as she reached for the kitchen phone, hastily dialing emergency services. The voice on the other end of the line struggled to comprehend the gravity of the situation. Barbara Broslow, a pillar of the community known for her warm and nurturing nature, had met a gruesome and untimely demise within the confines of her own home. News of the shocking discovery spread like wildfire through Pinecrest Hills. The tight-knit community, usually abuzz with gossip about the latest fashion trends or local bake sales, was now consumed by fear and uncertainty. The murder of Barbara Broslow had shattered their illusion of safety, leaving them vulnerable and searching for answers. As investigators descended upon the Broslow household, meticulously combing through every inch for clues, the residents of Pinecrest Hills held their breath. Who could have committed such a heinous act? Was it a random act of violence, or was there something more sinister at play? The Norwalk Police Department wasted no time in launching a thorough investigation into the heinous murder of Barbara Broslow. Detective Indra Romert and Detective Stuart Teamkill, seasoned investigators with a reputation for cracking even the toughest cases, were assigned to lead the inquiry. Arriving at the crime scene, the detectives were met with a chilling sight. The Broslow household, usually a place of warmth and love, had been transformed into a macabre tableau. The kitchen, where Barbara should have been preparing meals for her family, now bore the scars of a violent crime. Bloodstains, like dark omens, marred the pristine surfaces. The air was thick with an eerie silence, broken only by the occasional creak of floorboards under the detectives' cautious steps. The investigators meticulously combed through the house, leaving no stone unturned. They carefully examined every inch of the crime scene, collecting evidence and piecing together the puzzle of Barbara's untimely demise. The walls echoed with the soft hum of their conversations as they discussed theories and brainstormed possible leads. As they sifted through the evidence, the detectives discovered a number of intriguing clues. A single bullet casing, gleaming under the harsh fluorescent lights, hinted at the weapon used to snuff out Barbara's life. They also found a shattered vase, its shards scattered across the floor, suggesting a struggle had taken place. The detectives meticulously bagged and tagged each item, knowing that even the smallest detail could hold the key to unlocking the truth. Outside the Broslow household, the investigation expanded. Detective Romert and Detective Teamkill interviewed neighbors, hoping to gather any information that could shed light on the events leading up to the murder. They spoke to Patty Myers, the neighbor who had made the gruesome discovery, and noted down her harrowing account. They also reached out to Mark Cassavetes, discovering that rumors of an affair were just that. As the detectives meticulously pieced together the evidence, the weight of the case hung heavy on their shoulders. The clock was ticking, and they knew that time was of the essence. As the chilling case of Barbara Broslow's murder unfolded, the spotlight turned towards her husband, David Broslow. At 40 years old, David was an accountant by profession, known for his charming demeanor and ambitious drive. On the surface, he appeared to be a loving and devoted spouse, but as the investigation deepened, a dark and sinister secret began to emerge. The police wasted no time in interrogating David, determined to uncover any possible motives for such a heinous act. They meticulously combed through his personal and professional life, seeking answers that would shed light on the tragedy that had befallen the Broslow family. During the interrogation, the detectives confronted David with evidence that contradicted his claims of innocence. They presented him with phone records that showed numerous late-night calls to a mysterious number traced back to a payphone outside a local diner. The detectives also discovered a hidden compartment in David's car containing a stack of love letters addressed to a woman named Karen, a colleague at his workplace. As the pressure mounted, David's calm facade began to crumble. The once charming man grew visibly agitated, his voice trembling as he vehemently denied any involvement in his wife's murder. However, his attempts to protect his own interest became increasingly transparent to the seasoned detectives. The investigation took an unexpected turn when a witness came forward, claiming to have seen David arguing with Barbara at a local bar just days before her death. The witness, also named Karen, recalled hearing heated exchanges between the couple, with David's voice filled with anger and frustration. This revelation added another layer of suspicion to David's already shaky alibi. As the investigation into David Broslow continued, the detectives dug deeper into his financial records, uncovering a series of questionable transactions. They discovered that David had been embezzling funds from his workplace, a prestigious accounting firm in downtown Norwalk. This revelation painted a picture of a man desperate to cover his tracks, willing to go to extreme lengths to maintain his facade of success. The investigation into the murder of Barbara Broslow took a startling turn when another person of interest emerged, Leanne Portmanteau, the Broslow family's babysitter and a senior at the local high school. At just 18 years old, Leanne was known for her youthful innocence and naive charm. However, beneath her seemingly innocent facade lurked a not-so-secret romantic obsession for David Broslow, Barbara's husband. Leanne had been babysitting for the Broslow family for over a year, developing a close bond with Barbara and the children, Mikey and Bubbles. She idolized Barbara, admiring her nurturing nature and the loving environment she had created for her family. But it was David who captured Leanne's attention, fueling her dreams of one day becoming his bride. As the investigation unfolded, detectives discovered a series of secret love letters written by Leanne to David, expressing her deep affection and desire for him. These letters painted a vivid picture of a young girl infatuated with an older man, yearning for a love that seemed unattainable. The detectives carefully analyzed the letters, searching for clues that could link Leanne to the murder of Barbara. Detective Indra Ramert and Detective Stuart Teamkill delved deeper into Leanne's background, interviewing her friends, teachers, and acquaintances. They discovered that Leanne had become increasingly jealous of Barbara, viewing her as an obstacle standing in the way of her romantic fantasies. Friends recalled Leanne's obsession with true crime stories and her fascination with cases involving love triangles, often discussing them with a morbid curiosity. The detectives also uncovered evidence that Leanne had been researching firearms and their potential effects on the human body. They found a stack of magazines, including a March 1988 issue of True Crime Monthly, which featured an article on infamous murder cases. This discovery raised suspicions about Leanne's intentions and her possible involvement in Barbara's murder. Furthermore, witnesses reported seeing Leanne near the Broslow household on the day of the crime. One neighbor, Mrs. Karen Johnson, stated that she saw Leanne lurking around the property, peering through the windows with an intense gaze. Another witness claimed to have seen Leanne leaving the area in a hurry, her face flushed and her hands trembling. The police, now armed with substantial evidence and witness testimonies, brought Leanne in for questioning. The detectives confronted her with the love letters, the magazines, and the witness accounts. Initially, Leanne denied any involvement in Barbara's murder, insisting that her feelings for David were harmless and that she would never harm Barbara. However, as the detectives pressed her further, Leanne's composure began to crumble, revealing a young girl trapped in a web of obsession and desperation. The investigation into the murder of Barbara Broslow took a surprising twist with the emergence of a new suspect. Alex Bruce Coachman, a 17-year-old boy and the son of the Broslow family's neighbor, became a person of interest in this chilling case. Known for his nosy and intrusive behavior, Alex had a troubled history with the Broslow family. Alex's obsession with Leanne Portmanteau, the Broslow family's babysitter and his classmate at the local high school, was no secret. He had broken into the Broslow family home on multiple occasions, driven by an intense infatuation with Leanne. But it was his deep-seated resentment towards Barbara that made him a potential suspect in her murder. The police interrogated Alex, hoping to uncover his motive for such a heinous act. As the questions intensified, Alex's anger and frustration became evident. He struggled to maintain his calm facade, revealing a young man consumed by jealousy and desperation. It was discovered that Alex had been keeping a disturbing collection of newspaper clippings and photographs of Barbara. These items were found hidden in a secret compartment in his bedroom, providing a glimpse into the depths of his obsession. The clippings included articles about Barbara's involvement in the local community, her role as a dedicated mother, and her close relationship with her husband, David. Further investigation revealed that Alex had been following Barbara's every move, documenting her daily routines and interactions. He had even gone as far as to purchase a camera with a telephoto lens, allowing him to capture intimate moments from a distance. This unsettling behavior painted a disturbing picture of a young man fixated on Barbara, viewing her as a threat to his own fated lover, Leanne. As the investigation continued, the police uncovered evidence linking Alex to the crime scene. Fingerprints found on a kitchen knife matched Alex's, raising suspicions of his involvement in the murder. Additionally, witnesses reported seeing Alex in the vicinity of the Broslow household on the day of the crime. The police diligently pursued every lead, leaving no stone unturned in their quest for justice. As the case gained media attention, the community was gripped by fear and disbelief. The quiet suburb of Norwalk, Connecticut, was now at the center of a shocking crime that had shattered the illusion of safety. In a shocking twist of events, the true culprit behind the heinous murder of Barbara Broslow was finally revealed to be none other than her own husband, David Broslow. The police investigation, led by Norwalk Police Detective Indra Romert and Detective Stuart Teamkill, meticulously unraveled the web of deceit and betrayal that had engulfed the Broslow family. Driven by a toxic combination of jealousy and greed, David had orchestrated a sinister plot to end his wife's life and frame an innocent teenager, Alex Bruce Coachman, for the crime. His motive? To escape the confines of his unhappy marriage and start a new life with the family's babysitter, Leanne Portmanteau, who had become his accomplice in this chilling saga. The evidence against David was overwhelming. Through meticulous forensic analysis, the police were able to connect him to the murder weapon, a .38 caliber revolver found hidden in the attic of their suburban home. The gun, traced back to a local pawn shop, had been purchased by David just weeks before the crime took place. The bullet casings recovered from the crime scene matched those fired from the weapon, leaving no doubt as to David's guilt. But it wasn't just the physical evidence that sealed David's fate. The police also uncovered a plot between him and Leanne, detailing their plans to carry out the murder and deceive the authorities. As news of David's and Leanne's arrest spread throughout the community, shock and disbelief rippled through the quiet streets of Norwalk. The local media, hungry for a sensational story, descended upon the town, their cameras capturing the anguish and bewilderment etched on the faces of neighbors and friends. The aftermath of this tragic event left the Broslow family shattered and scarred. Barbara's children, Mikey and Bubbles, were forced to confront the harsh reality that their father, the man they once idolized, was capable of such evil. The community rallied around them, offering support and solace during this difficult time. The trial of David Broslow, the man responsible for the brutal murder of his wife Barbara, captivated the area as it unfolded in the spring of 1988. The courtroom, located in the heart of Norwalk, Connecticut, buzzed with anticipation as the prosecution and defense presented their cases. District Attorney Tom Valligance, a seasoned prosecutor known for his meticulous attention to detail, painted a vivid picture of David's motives and the calculated nature of the crime. He meticulously laid out the evidence, including the testimonies of neighbors who had heard heated arguments between David and Barbara in the months leading up to her murder. Defense attorney Michael Stevens, a charismatic lawyer with a reputation for his persuasive arguments, fought vigorously to cast doubt on the prosecution's case. He questioned the reliability of witness testimonies, suggesting that they were influenced by media coverage and the desire for justice. Stevens argued that there was no concrete evidence linking David to the crime, and that the investigation had failed to explore other possible suspects. The trial was a roller coaster of emotions for the victim's family. Barbara's parents sat stoically in the courtroom, their eyes filled with tears as they listened to the harrowing details of their daughter's final moments. Mikey and Bubbles, Barbara's children, clung to their grandparents for support, their innocence shattered by the cruel reality of their mother's murder. As the trial reached its climax, the jury retired to deliberate. The tension in the courtroom was palpable as the nation waited with bated breath for the verdict.
After several hours of deliberation, the jury returned with a unanimous decision: guilty. David Broslow, the man who had meticulously planned and executed his wife's murder, and Leanne Portmanteau, his accomplice and lover, were sentenced to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. The sentencing brought a mix of relief and grief to the victim's family. While they found solace in the fact that justice had been served, the pain of losing Barbara would forever linger. The community of Norwalk, still reeling from the shock of the murder, found some closure in the knowledge that the person responsible would be held accountable for his actions. In the aftermath of the trial, the Broslow case became a cautionary tale, reminding us of the dark underbelly that can lurk behind the facade of suburban tranquility. It served as a stark reminder that evil can reside in the most unexpected places, tearing apart families and shattering lives. After the gripping trial that captivated the area, life slowly began to return to a semblance of normalcy for those involved in the tragic murder of Barbara Broslow. Leanne Portmanteau, the teenage babysitter who was caught up in the web of deceit and found herself in prison, found solace in the support of her family and friends. Leanne's dreams of a future with David Broslow were shattered, and she realized the extent of his manipulation and deceit. She distanced herself from the dark memories of the past, immersing herself in her studies and extracurricular activities. With the guidance of her prison counselor, she sought therapy to help process the trauma she had endured. As for Alex Bruce Coachman, the troubled young neighbor who had harbored an unhealthy obsession with Leanne, he faced legal consequences for his intrusive behavior. The court-mandated counseling sessions aimed to address his deeply rooted issues and provide him with the necessary tools to rebuild his life. The community rallied around Alex, offering support and understanding as he worked towards redemption. As the years passed, the wounds slowly healed, but the scars remained. The Broslow family continued to honor Barbara's memory through acts of kindness and charitable donations. They established the Barbara Broslow Memorial Fund, which provided financial assistance to local families facing hardships. The fund became a symbol of hope and resilience in the face of tragedy. And so, we conclude this episode of True Crime Case Files. The story of Barbara Broslow's tragic murder serves as a chilling reminder of the darkness that can lurk beneath the surface of seemingly idyllic lives. Join us next time as we delve into another captivating tale of mystery and intrigue. Lynette Vero Werner was a 34-year-old woman who lived in Salt Lake City, Utah. She worked as an elementary school teacher at Rose Park Elementary School. Known for her kindness, patience, and dedication, Lynette loved her students and always tried to help them learn and grow. She had a gentle soul and was deeply loved by her community. Lynette was also an avid reader. She enjoyed spending her evenings with a good book, often picking up the latest bestsellers from local bookstores like the King's English Bookshop. Her favorite genre was historical romance, and she the books of author Joyce Lehman, who was popular among female readers at the time. Lynette also loved gardening. She spent many weekends in her backyard, planting flowers and vegetables. She found peace in watching her garden grow and bloom. Lynette was married to Mike Werner, a charming man who seemed like the perfect husband. They had a cozy home in a quiet neighborhood. Lynette was close to her family, especially her younger sister Julie, who lived nearby. Julie often visited Lynette to help with the garden or just to chat over a cup of coffee. Lynette's parents, who lived in Idaho, would call her regularly to catch up and hear about her life. In May 2005, Lynette was excited about the upcoming summer break. She was planning a new project for her students that involved reading and gardening. She believed it would help them learn about both literature and nature. She was also looking forward to spending more time in her garden, which was beginning to bloom with roses and tulips. Lynette's colleagues at Rose Park Elementary admired her dedication. She was always the first to arrive and the last to leave, making sure everything was perfect for her students. Her principal often praised her for her hard work and commitment. Lynette's dreams were simple but profound. She wanted to inspire her students, create a loving home, and make a difference in her community. Her life seemed perfect, and she was happy and fulfilled. But in the days leading up to her death, everything changed. The peaceful life Lynette had built was shattered by a tragic event that no one saw coming. On the morning of May 12, 2005, the weather was clear and sunny in Salt Lake City, Utah. At around 7:30 a.m., Mike Werner called 911, his voice filled with panic.
He told the dispatcher that he had found his wife, Lynette Vero Werner, unresponsive in their bathtub. Earlier that morning, Mike had woken up and noticed that Lynette was not in bed. Thinking she might be in the bathroom, he knocked on the door but got no response. When he opened the door, he found Lynette lying in the bathtub, the water still. She wasn't moving. Mike tried to wake her but quickly realized something was very wrong. The 911 call was short and frantic. Mike sounded scared and desperate as he explained what had happened. Within minutes, an ambulance arrived at their home, followed closely by the police. Paramedics tried to revive Lynette, but soon pronounced her dead at the scene. Neighbors began to gather outside the Werner home, whispering among themselves. Some of them had seen Lynette the day before, smiling and waving as she tended to her garden. The news of her death spread quickly through the neighborhood, leaving everyone in disbelief. The local news stations, including KUTV and Fox 13, soon picked up the story. Reporters arrived at the scene, setting up cameras and interviewing neighbors who described Lynette as a lovely and kind person. The media coverage added to the tension and sadness that hung over the neighborhood. As the day went on, Lynette's family was notified. Her sister, Julie, arrived in tears, unable to comprehend what had happened. The tragic news left everyone who knew Lynette in shock, struggling to understand how such a vibrant and caring person could be gone so suddenly. On May 12, 2005, after paramedics pronounced Lynette Vero Werner dead, Detective Sarah Adelaide and Officer James Elizette began their investigation. They arrived quickly, within 10 minutes of the 911 call. The first thing they noticed was how calm and tidy the bathroom appeared. There were no signs of struggle, and everything seemed in place. Lynette was found in the bathtub, the water still and clear. She was fully clothed, wearing her usual evening attire. The room was brightly lit by the morning sun streaming through the window. The scene suggested an accidental drowning, but Detective Adelaide wanted to be thorough. She knew that sometimes appearances could be deceiving. Mike Werner, Lynette's husband, was sitting on the living room couch, looking pale and shaken. He seemed in shock and kept repeating, "How could this happen?" Detective Adelaide and Officer Elizette approached him gently, asking him to describe what had happened. Mike repeated his story. Lynette had taken a bath the night before, and he had gone to bed early. When he woke up, he found her in the tub, unresponsive. Detective Adelaide noticed that Mike's story was consistent, but she still had questions. She asked him about Lynette's health and whether she had any medical conditions that could explain what happened. Mike shook his head, saying Lynette was healthy and had no known issues. He seemed genuinely confused and distressed. The police then turned their attention to the rest of the house. They looked for anything unusual or out of place. They checked the bedroom, kitchen, and living room, but everything seemed normal. There were no signs of forced entry or anything that would suggest foul play. Forensics teams arrived and began their work. They took samples of the water from the bathtub, checked for fingerprints, and collected any potential evidence. They used luminol to check for any hidden traces of blood, but nothing was found. The team also took Lynette's body for an autopsy to determine the exact cause of death. By the end of the day, the initial investigation suggested that Lynette's death was an accident. There were no obvious signs of foul play. However, Detective Adelaide remained cautious. She knew that sometimes the truth took time to uncover. She decided to keep a close eye on the autopsy results and any other evidence that might come up. The police wrapped up their work at the scene, leaving the Werner home quiet and still, a stark contrast to the chaos and confusion of the morning. Lynette's death left a deep sadness in the neighborhood, as everyone waited for more answers. In the weeks following Lynette Vero Werner's death, the police continued their investigation. Despite the initial conclusion of accidental drowning, Detective Sarah Adelaide wanted to be sure they hadn't missed anything. During their review, a possible suspect emerged, Richie Alvey, a 65-year-old felon and registered sex offender who had been seen walking near Lynette's home on the day she died. Richie Alvey was known in the neighborhood. He had a long criminal history and was known for his erratic behavior. Some neighbors reported seeing him loitering around Lynette's street several times. His presence made people uneasy, and the police decided to question him. Detective Adelaide and Officer Elizette brought Richie in for interrogation at the Salt Lake City Police Department. Richie was disheveled and nervous when he arrived. He claimed he was just passing through the neighborhood on the day Lynette died. When asked about his whereabouts, Richie provided an alibi, saying he spent most of the day at a local diner, IKOP, which was popular with locals for its affordable meals and classic American diner feel. The detectives checked Richie's alibi. They spoke to the staff at IGO, who remembered seeing Richie there for breakfast and lunch. He had been chatting with the regulars and reading the Salt Lake Tribune. The timeline seemed to match up, but the police needed to be thorough. They checked surveillance footage from nearby stores and found Richie on camera during the times he claimed to be at the diner. During the interrogation, Richie was defensive and agitated. He denied any involvement in Lynette's death and insisted he had nothing to do with it. Detective Adelaide observed his body language and noted that while he was nervous, he didn't show signs of lying. The questioning was tense, but eventually Richie's alibi was confirmed, and the police had to let him go. Richie's behavior raised some suspicions, but with a solid alibi and no evidence linking him to the crime scene, the police had no choice but to clear him as a suspect. Detective Adelaide was disappointed, but knew she had to follow the evidence. She continued to look into other leads, determined to find out what really happened to Lynette. As the investigation progressed, the community remained on edge. The news of Richie's questioning spread quickly, adding to the local gossip. Neighbors did not believe that he wasn't involved, but they also wanted answers. Lynette's death remained a mystery, and the police were still searching for the truth. 4 years after Lynette Vera Werner's tragic death, another mystery unfolded. In January 2009, Sarah Zadie, a 28-year-old nurse, was found dead at the bottom of the staircase in her home. Sarah was known for her compassion and dedication as a nurse at the University of Utah Hospital. She was also an avid hiker and volunteered at local shelters. On January 19, 2009, a neighbor, Pamela Lamley, found Sarah's body. Pamela had stopped by to check on Sarah after not hearing from her for a few days. When she saw Sarah at the bottom of the stairs, she immediately called 911, her voice shaking with fear. The police and paramedics arrived quickly, finding Sarah dead from what appeared to be a fall. Detective Sarah Adelaide and Officer James Elizette were once again on the case. They arrived at the scene and began their investigation. The staircase was wooden, with no railings. The house was neat and clean, with no signs of a struggle. It seemed like a tragic accident, but Detective Adelaide had a feeling something was off. Sarah's husband, Mike Werner, was questioned again. He seemed deeply grieved and distraught, much like he had been after Lynette's death. Mike said he had been at work when the accident happened. He worked as an insurance agent at State Farm, the insurance provider who's always there for you, and his colleagues confirmed his alibi. Mike's demeanor was calm and cooperative during the interrogation. He expressed his shock and sadness, insisting he couldn't understand how such a thing could happen. Detective Adelaide found his reactions consistent with someone who had just lost a loved one, but she couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to the story. Sarah's friends and family were devastated by her sudden death. They described her as a resilient and empathetic person who was always there for others. The idea that she could have simply fallen down the stairs seemed hard to believe. Her best friend, Jana, mentioned that Sarah was always careful, especially in her own home. As the police investigated further, they found that Mike had taken out a substantial life insurance policy on Sarah just a few months before her death. This raised suspicions, but there was no concrete evidence linking him to the fall. The autopsy showed that Sarah had died from head trauma consistent with a fall, and there were no signs of foul play. Despite the suspicious circumstances, the lack of physical evidence made it difficult to pursue charges. The police were left with unanswered questions and a sense of unease. Mike Werner remained free, but the investigation into his wife's deaths continued. Detective Adelaide knew she had to stay vigilant. The pattern of accidents was troubling, and she was determined to uncover the truth. The community, still haunted by the mysterious deaths, hoped for answers as the investigation pressed on. Janet Werner, the third wife of Mike Werner, died on June 3, 2013. She was 49 years old and worked as an accountant. Janet was known for her meticulous nature and great sense of humor. She loved solving puzzles and was very close to her family and friends. People described her as loyal and trustworthy. On the evening of June 3rd, Janet was found dead in her garage from what appeared to be carbon monoxide poisoning caused by a faulty heater. Mike, yet again, was the one who found her and called 911 sounding distraught. The initial investigation ruled her death an accident, just like the previous cases involving Mike's wives. Detective Sarah Adelaide decided to look deeper into Janet's death after receiving new evidence linking Mike to suspicious life insurance policies. Janet had taken out a large life insurance policy just months before her death, with Mike as the sole beneficiary. This pattern was too significant to ignore. Detective Adelaide and Officer James Elizette went to Janet's home to re-examine the scene. The garage was tidy, and the heater appeared to be the source of the carbon monoxide. But upon closer inspection, the forensics team found signs of tampering with the heater, suggesting it was no accident. This discovery raised serious questions about Mike's involvement. The police questioned Mike again, this time with more intensity. Mike was now 45 years old, handsome as always and charming, always portraying himself as a grieving widower. However, under pressure, his calm demeanor began to crack. He insisted that Janet's death was a tragic accident and denied any wrongdoing. Janet's friends and family were interviewed as well. They described Janet as a happy and healthy woman who was always cautious. Her sudden death was a shock to everyone. Her sister, Karen, recalled that Janet had mentioned feeling uneasy about the new heater, but didn't think much of it at the time. But police also discovered that Mike had a history of financial troubles. Despite his successful appearance, he had accumulated significant debt. But life insurance payouts from his wife's deaths seemed to be a way for him to solve his financial problems. This provided a strong motive for the police to consider. The investigation revealed more disturbing details about Mike's past. Before Lynette's, Sarah, and Janet, Mike had been married to a woman named Jennifer, who also died under mysterious circumstances. This pattern of deaths and life insurance claims made it clear that Mike was not just a grieving husband, but possibly a serial killer. With this new information, Detective Adelaide felt they were getting closer to the truth. The evidence against Mike was mounting, and it was only a matter of time before they could prove his involvement in the deaths of his wives. The investigation was now focused on uncovering every detail to bring justice for Lynette's, Sarah, Janet, and Jennifer. Janet's tragic death, once thought to be an accident, was now seen as part of a sinister pattern. The police were determined to uncover the full extent of Mike Werner's actions and hold him accountable. On June 20, 2013, the sunny weather in Salt Lake City set the stage for a major breakthrough in the case. Detective Sarah Adelaide and her team had gathered enough evidence to arrest Mike Werner for the murders of his wives. Mike, 45, was a charming and successful insurance agent. He seemed like the perfect husband, but his calm exterior hid a dark history of manipulation and greed. The investigation revealed that Mike had married and killed 4 women: Jennifer, Lynette, Sarah, and Janet. Each time he collected large life insurance payouts, which he used to cover his financial troubles. Mike was also found to be a member of a disturbing website called wifekillcompetition.net, where members competed to see how many wives they could kill without getting caught. Apparently, Mike, with only 4 dead wives, wasn't even a top scorer. A Japanese man on the site managed to marry and kill 23 women without getting caught. Detective Adelaide and Officer James Elizette planned Mike's arrest carefully. They wanted to ensure they had everything they needed to bring him to justice. At 9:00 a.m., they arrived at Mike's office where he was meeting with a client. The police entered the building calmly and approached Mike, who was taken by surprise. He looked shocked as Detective Adelaide read him his rights, then placed him in handcuffs. Mike's reaction was one of disbelief. He protested his innocence, claiming he loved his wives and would never harm them. However, the evidence was overwhelming. The police had proof of his involvement in all 4 deaths, including the tampered heater that killed Janet and the life insurance policies he took out on each wife shortly before their deaths. The news of Mike's arrest spread quickly. Local news stations, including KUTV and Fox 13, covered the story extensively. Reporters gathered outside the police station, and neighbors expressed their shock and relief that Mike had been arrested. The families of Lynette, Sarah, Janet, and Jennifer were notified. Lynette's sister, Julie, was relieved but also devastated by the confirmation of Mike's guilt. Sarah's best friend, Emily, expressed similar feelings, saying justice is finally being served, but it doesn't bring Sarah back. Detective Adelaide felt a sense of accomplishment. She had worked tirelessly on the case, and now the man responsible for these tragic deaths was behind bars. The community, still reeling from the revelations, began to feel a sense of closure. Mike Werner's arrest marked the end of a long and complex investigation. The police had uncovered the truth, and justice was finally being served. The families of the victims could now begin to heal, knowing that the man who caused so much pain would face the consequences of his actions. In early 2014, Mike Werner's trial began. The courtroom was packed with reporters, family members, and curious onlookers. The prosecution was led by District Attorney Karen Anasilia, a 45-year-old known for her sharp mind and dedication to justice. She presented a compelling case against Mike, detailing how he had systematically killed his wives for life insurance money. Anasilia started by outlining the pattern of deaths. Jennifer in 2002, Lynette in 2005, Sarah in 2009, and Janet in 2013. Each wife had a large life insurance policy, and each death was initially ruled an accident. Anasilia showed evidence of Mike's financial troubles and his membership in the wifekillcompetition.net website. She argued that Mike was a cold-blooded killer who saw his wives as means to an end. The defense attorney, Robert Burke, was a 50-year-old with a reputation for defending high-profile clients. Burke argued that Mike loved his wives and that their deaths were tragic accidents. He claimed the insurance policies were standard precautions and that Mike had no motive to harm his loved ones. Burke also tried to discredit the prosecution's evidence, suggesting that the tampering with the heater could have been a coincidence. Throughout the trial, emotions ran high. Lynette's sister, Julie, often broke down in tears, while Sarah's best friend, Emily, glared at Mike from the gallery. The families of the victims wanted justice and closure for their lost loved ones. After weeks of testimony, the jury deliberated for 3 days. On February 10, 2014, they returned with a verdict. Mike Werner was found guilty of first-degree murder for the deaths of Jennifer, Lynette, Sarah, and Janet. The courtroom erupted in gasps and whispers as the verdict was read. Mike was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. She called his actions calculated and heinous and expressed her hope that the sentence would bring some peace to the victims' families. Mike showed little emotion as the sentence was handed down. His once charming demeanor was replaced by a blank stare. The families of the victims had mixed reactions. Lynette's sister, Julie, said, "I'm relieved he's finally being held accountable, but nothing can bring my sister back." Sarah's friend, Emily, added, "This is justice, but it's also a reminder of the pain he caused." The trial and sentencing had a profound impact on the community. Many were shocked that such evil could exist behind a facade of normalcy. The case also brought attention to the importance of thorough investigations and the potential dangers of life insurance policies. In the aftermath, the victims' families began to heal, knowing that Mike Werner would never harm anyone again. The police officers and detectives involved felt a sense of closure, having brought a dangerous man to justice. The community, while still grappling with the horror of the crimes, took solace in the fact that justice had been served. Following Mike Werner's trial and conviction, life began to slowly return to normal for the families involved, the police, and the community. However, the scars left by the tragic events lingered, reshaping the lives of those touched by the case. For Lynette Vero Werner's family, the trial offered closure, but the pain of her loss remained. Julie, her sister, found solace in connecting with support groups and advocating for victims of domestic violence. She also spearheaded a campaign to raise awareness about the dangers of online forums like wifekillcompetition.net. Sarah Zadie's friends and colleagues at the University of Utah Hospital honored her memory by establishing a scholarship fund in her name. They organized charity events and fundraisers to support causes Sarah was passionate about, such as animal welfare and healthcare access for underserved communities. Janet Werner's family struggled to come to terms with the betrayal by someone they once considered family. They leaned on each other for support, finding strength in their shared memories of Janet's kindness and humor. Together, they planted a garden in her memory, cultivating her favorite flowers and vegetables. As for the community, the case served as a sobering reminder of the dangers that could lurk behind closed doors. It prompted discussions about the importance of vigilance and support for victims of domestic violence. Organizations like the Salt Lake City Domestic Violence Coalition saw an increase in calls for assistance and redoubled their efforts to provide resources and support to those in need. In the aftermath of the trial, Salt Lake City came together to heal and rebuild. While the wounds left by the tragedy would never fully heal, the community found strength in solidarity and a renewed commitment to supporting one another in times of need. In late July 2017, this is the story of Caroline Stevens, a dedicated pediatric nurse whose life was cut short by a sinister plot involving her husband and their foster daughter. Caroline Stevens was a 52-year-old pediatric nurse who lived in Corvallis, Oregon. Known for her kind heart and dedication to her work, Caroline was a beloved figure in her community. She had a special gift for connecting with children, something that made her a standout nurse at the Louisville Hospital, Good Samaritan Regional Medical Center. Caroline's colleagues often spoke about her compassion and patience. She was the nurse who would stay late to comfort a scared child or to talk with worried parents. Caroline had a unique perspective on life. As a former foster child, she knew the struggles that many children faced, This personal history drove her to help others, especially children and teens in the foster care system. She was actively involved in community programs and often volunteered at local shelters. Caroline's friends described her as nurturing and empathetic, always willing to lend a helping hand. Her home was often filled with laughter and the smell of homemade cookies, a testament to her love for baking. Caroline was married to Dr. Oliver Stevens, an entomologist at Oregon State University. They had been married for over 20 years and were well known in the community. They had no biological children, but they had fostered several over the years. Their most recent foster child was Charmin Briscoe, who had turned 18 just a few months before Caroline's death. Caroline was very close to Charmin, treating her as her own daughter and supporting her plans to attend Oregon State in the fall. In the days leading up to her death, Caroline was busy with her usual activities. She had just organized a small charity event at her church, St. Mary's Catholic Church, where she was a devoted member. Her friends recalled how excited she was about an upcoming summer picnic planned for the children in her care program. Caroline's diary entries from this time reflected her joy and anticipation for the future. She wrote about her dreams of continuing her work with children and perhaps even starting a small nonprofit organization dedicated to helping foster kids. Caroline's life was a beacon of hope and kindness, making her tragic end all the more shocking and mysterious for everyone who knew her. It was late at night on July 29, 2017, when the peaceful town of Corvallis was jolted by a horrifying discovery. Caroline Stevens' body was found in the backyard of her home. The time was around 10:30 p.m. The person who found her was a neighbor, Lisa Turner. Lisa had come over to return a casserole dish she had borrowed earlier in the week. As she approached the house, she noticed the back gate was open, which was unusual. Lisa decided to check if everything was all right. She walked into the backyard and found Caroline lying on the ground motionless. Caroline's body was partially hidden by the tall garden plants she had lovingly tended. Lisa's first reaction was shock. She dropped the dish and screamed, her voice echoing through the quiet neighborhood. She quickly pulled out her phone and dialed 911, her hands shaking as she tried to explain what she had found. The emergency operator calmed Lisa down and got the necessary details. Lisa described how Caroline looked. She was covered in dirt and there was a rope around her neck. The operator assured Lisa that help was on the way and advised her to stay where she was but not to touch anything. Lisa, still in shock, sat on the back steps, trying to process what she had just seen. When the police and paramedics arrived, they found Lisa visibly shaken but able to give a statement. Officer Joey Martins, one of the first on the scene, described Lisa as pale and trembling, her voice barely a whisper as she recounted the events. The backyard was quickly cordoned off with yellow police tape as investigators began their work. Caroline's body was carefully examined. The medical examiner, Dr. Susan Ng, noted the severe head injuries and the strangulation marks on Caroline's neck. She confirmed that Caroline had been bludgeoned with a tire iron and then strangled with a rope. The scene was gruesome, with blood spatters on the garden pathway and the tire iron lying nearby, partially hidden under a bush. News of the murder spread quickly through Corvallis. People were shocked that something so terrible could happen in their quiet town. Friends and family gathered outside the Stevens home, comforting each other and trying to make sense of the tragedy. Caroline's death was a harsh blow to the community. She was a beloved figure, and the brutality of her murder left everyone in a state of disbelief and fear. The police promised to find out who was responsible for this heinous crime and bring them to justice. The police arrived quickly at the Stevens home on July 29, 2017. By 11:00 p.m., the quiet neighborhood of Corvallis was buzzing with activity. Officer Joey Martinez, along with Detective Linda Salina and Detective Mike Prosper, led the investigation. They were known for their thoroughness and dedication. Detective Salina, a 10-year veteran of the force, was especially known for her keen eye for detail. Detective Prosper, her partner, was equally experienced and meticulous. The crime scene was a mess. Caroline Stevens' body lay in the backyard, surrounded by her garden plants. Blood was splattered on the garden pathway, and a tire iron lay nearby, partially hidden under a bush. The rope around Caroline's neck was still tightly wound. The detectives immediately began to secure the area, putting up yellow police tape to keep curious neighbors and onlookers at a distance. Detective Salina took the lead in examining the body. She noted the severe head injuries and the clear marks of strangulation on Caroline's neck. It was evident that Caroline had been bludgeoned with the tire iron and then strangled with the rope. The brutality of the crime was shocking. Detective Selena carefully documented the scene, taking photographs and making notes. Detective Prosper focused on gathering evidence from the surrounding area. He collected the tire iron and bagged it for forensic analysis. He also took samples of the blood spatter and examined the rope for any potential clues. The backyard was meticulously combed for any signs that might point to the murderer. As the investigation continued, the police used various tools and methods to gather evidence. They brought in a forensic team to dust for fingerprints and collect DNA samples. The tire iron was sent to the lab for analysis to determine if it had any fingerprints or other trace evidence. The rope was also examined for fibers or hairs that might help identify the killer. By the early hours of July 30, the police had gathered a significant amount of evidence from the crime scene. Detective Selena and Detective Prosper reviewed their findings and began to piece together the events that led to Caroline's murder. The brutality of the crime suggested a personal motive, and they knew they had to act quickly to find the murderer before they could strike again. The investigation was just beginning, but the detectives were determined to solve the case and bring justice for Caroline Stevens. The peaceful town of Corvallis was now the center of a major murder investigation, and the police were ready to uncover the truth. The first suspect the police investigated was Dr. Oliver Stevens, Caroline's husband. Dr. Stevens, 55, was an entomologist at Oregon State University. He studied insects and was well known in his field. To the outside world, he seemed like a mild-mannered and hardworking man. However, some in the community found him creepy. Oliver had a reputation for being distant and socially awkward. When the police arrived at Oliver's workplace to question him, he was in his lab, working late as usual. He seemed calm and cooperative. Oliver told the police he had been at work all day and only came home late in the evening. He claimed to have found the house empty and assumed Caroline was out visiting friends. Oliver's alibi was that he had been at the university the entire time, with colleagues who could confirm his presence. Detectives Selena and Prosper interviewed Oliver in the small, cluttered office at the university. Oliver appeared calm but showed little emotion when discussing his wife's death. He described his relationship with Caroline as good and normal. However, the detectives noticed that he avoided making direct eye contact and seemed uncomfortable when they asked about his personal life. The police were particularly interested in Oliver's recent behavior. They discovered that Oliver had married Charmin Briscoe, their former foster daughter, in a small ceremony just 6 days after Caroline's death. This raised so many red flags. Marrying so soon after his wife's brutal murder seemed extremely suspicious and definitely earned him the title of creepiest man in Oregon. Oliver calmly explained that he and Charmin had developed feelings for each other over time and that the marriage was their way to move forward after Caroline's death. The police pressed Oliver on this point, asking if Caroline knew about his relationship with Charmin. Oliver admitted that Caroline had recently become suspicious and had confronted him about it. He claimed that they had argued but insisted he had nothing to do with her death. Oliver's demeanor during the interrogation was mostly calm, but he became visibly nervous when discussing his relationship with Charmin. Detective Selena found Oliver's behavior odd. Marrying so quickly after Caroline's death and his nervousness during the interrogation made him a prime suspect. However, they needed more evidence to link him directly to the murder. They decided to keep a close eye on him and continued to investigate other leads. As the investigation progressed, the detectives hoped to find more clues that would either confirm or dispel their suspicions about Dr. Oliver Stevens. His unusual behavior and rapid remarriage made him a key figure in the case, and the police were determined to uncover the truth. The second suspect the police investigated was Charmin Briscoe, the Stevens' former foster daughter and also Oliver Stevens' new wife. Charmin was 18 years old and had lived with Caroline and Oliver since she was 17. She had a troubled past, growing up with a violent alcoholic father. Despite these hardships, Charmin was an academically gifted student and had plans to attend Oregon State University in the fall. The police found Charmin packing up the small apartment that Oliver and Caroline had rented for her when she turned 18. Detective Linda Selena and Detective Mike Prosper visited her there to ask questions about Caroline's death. Charmin was quiet and reserved during the interview, traits her teachers and peers often mentioned. She appeared deeply affected by the events, but her answers were calm and straightforward. Charmin told the detectives about her relationship with Caroline, describing her as a kind and loving mother figure. She said Caroline had always supported her, especially in her academic pursuits. When asked about Oliver, Charman admitted that they had developed feelings for each other and that Oliver had treated her to a lavish dinner at a fancy restaurant for her 18th birthday. It was during this dinner that Oliver confessed his love for her and said caroling was just a nuisance. The police found it unusual that Charman married Oliver just days after Caroline's death. Charman explained that they were in love and wanted to move on with their lives. She insisted she had no involvement in Caroline's murder and that she had been at home studying on the night of the crime. Her alibi was that she had spent the evening alone, preparing for her upcoming university courses. Detective Selena noticed that Charman's answers were consistent but sensed a lingering fear in her demeanor. Charman seemed genuinely saddened by Caroline's death, but also appeared to be hiding something. The detectives asked Charman about her thoughts on Oliver's behavior after Caroline's death. Charman hesitated but then said Oliver had been supportive and caring, helping her through the difficult time. The police also asked Charman if Caroline knew about her relationship with Oliver. Charman said that Caroline had suspected something but had not confronted her directly. This information, combined with the rapid marriage, made Charman a person of interest. However, without solid evidence linking her to the crime, the detectives had to consider other possibilities. As the interview concluded, the police remained cautious about Charman's involvement. Her relationship with Oliver and her proximity to the Stevens family made her a key figure in the investigation. The detectives decided to monitor her closely while continuing to gather more information. The investigation into Charman Briscoe's role in the case was ongoing, with detectives looking for any clues that could either confirm or disprove her involvement in Caroline Stevens' murder. The third suspect the police investigated was Samuel Manjaro, a 43-year-old refugee from South Sudan. Samuel had moved to America with his 4 children after losing his wife during the Civil War. He found work as a janitor and rented a small apartment in Corbelis. Samuel's connection to the Stevens family came from a dispute with Dr. Oliver Stevens, who was his former landlord. Samuel had been evicted from his apartment by Dr. Stevens just a month before Caroline's death. Oliver had given Samuel and his family very little notice, making room for Charman Briscoe to live there rent-free. This eviction left Samuel and his children homeless for a short period, which caused him significant distress. The police considered Samuel a suspect because he had a motive for holding a grudge against Oliver. Detectives Linda Selena and Mike Prosper went to interview Samuel at his new apartment. Samuel was cooperative but visibly upset about the eviction. He spoke about the challenges of starting a new life in America and the hardship caused by losing his apartment. Samuel described how difficult it had been to find a new place to live while trying to keep his job and take care of his children. During the interview, Samuel appeared calm but frustrated when discussing Dr. Stevens. He admitted he was angry about the eviction but denied any involvement in Caroline's murder. Samuel explained that on the night of the murder, he was at work. His employer confirmed that Samuel had been working his usual night shift as a janitor at a local office building. The police checked Samuel's alibi and found it to be solid. His time card showed he had clocked in and out at the correct times, and security footage confirmed his presence at the building throughout the night. Despite his anger towards Oliver, there was no evidence linking Samuel to the crime scene. Detective Selena noticed that Samuel's main concern was the well-being of his children. He talked about how they were adjusting to life in Corbelis and his hopes for their future. Samuel was a hard-working man trying to provide for his family under challenging circumstances. His focus on his children and his solid alibi made it less likely that he was involved in Caroline's murder. After interviewing Samuel, the detectives concluded that while he had a motive to dislike Oliver, there was no direct evidence tying him to the crime. They decided to keep Samuel in mind, but turned their attention back to other leads that might provide more substantial clues. As the investigation continued, the police were determined to uncover the truth and bring justice to Caroline Stevens. Samuel Manjaro remained a person of interest, but the focus shifted back to the Stevens family and their complex relationships. On August 5, 2017, a week after Caroline Stevens' murder, the police received a crucial piece of new evidence. It was a hot and sunny afternoon when Detective Linda Selena got a call from the forensic lab. The lab had analyzed the tire iron found at the crime scene and discovered fingerprints that didn't belong to Caroline or Oliver. These fingerprints belonged to Charman Briscoe. The police immediately revisited the Stevens home to gather more evidence. This time, they brought in a specialized team to search for anything that might have been overlooked. Detective Mike Prosper led the team, and they meticulously combed through the house and backyard. They focused on areas where Charman might have left traces of her presence. During the search, they found a hidden compartment in the garage. Inside, there were several personal items belonging to Charmin, including a notebook. This notebook contained detailed entries about her sexual relationship with Oliver and her growing frustration with Caroline. One entry, dated just days before the murder, expressed anger towards Caroline for being a nasty bleep and mentioned a plan to make that bleep pay. The notebook was a significant find. It provided a direct link between Charmin and the murder. The police also found a pair of gloves in Charmin's apartment, which tested positive for traces of Caroline's blood. This evidence suggested that Charmin had worn the gloves while handling the tire iron, which explained why her fingerprints were only found on the weapon and not at the crime scene. With this new evidence, the police called Charmin in for another round of questioning. This time, they confronted her with the notebook and the blood-stained gloves. Charmin's demeanor changed drastically. She became visibly nervous and struggled to maintain her composure. She initially denied any involvement, but the mounting evidence made it difficult for her to keep her story straight. Charmin eventually broke down and confessed to being present at the crime scene, but insisted that Oliver was the one who had killed Caroline. She claimed that she had tried to stop him, but was too scared to report the crime. Charmin's confession added a new layer to the investigation, indicating that Oliver and Charmin might have been co-conspirators. The police reviewed Charmin's confession and the new evidence carefully. They realized that while Charmin's involvement was now clear, they still needed to determine Oliver's exact role in the murder. The focus of the investigation shifted to proving Oliver's participation and understanding the full extent of their plan. As the investigation progressed, the police were more determined than ever to bring justice for Caroline Stevens. The new evidence provided a clearer picture of what had happened, but the case was far from over. The detectives knew they had to keep pushing to uncover the whole truth. On August 10, 2017, the police felt they had enough evidence to arrest Dr. Oliver Stevens for the murder of his wife, Caroline. Dr. Stevens, 55, was a respected entomologist at Oregon State University, but behind his professional facade, he harbored dark secrets. Oliver had married Charmin Briscoe, their former foster daughter, just 6 days after Caroline's brutal murder, raising many suspicions. Detectives Linda Salina and Mike Prosper reviewed the new evidence carefully. Charmin's confession, the blood-stained gloves, and the notebook entries all pointed towards a conspiracy between Oliver and Charmin. They believed that Oliver orchestrated the murder to be with Charmin without any obstacles. Caroline had recently become suspicious of Oliver's behavior, which likely pushed him to act. On the morning of August 11, the police planned the arrest. They knew Oliver was teaching a class at the university, so they decided to confront him there. At 10:00 a.m., Detectives Salina and Prosper arrived at the campus. They waited outside his lecture hall until he finished his class. As Oliver exited the room, the detectives approached him, identified themselves, and informed him that he was under arrest for the murder of Caroline Stevens. Oliver's reaction was a mix of shock and resignation. He tried to maintain his composure but couldn't hide his surprise. The students and faculty nearby were equally shocked as they watched the arrest unfold. The detectives handcuffed Oliver and read him his rights. He was then escorted to the police car, maintaining a stoic expression throughout the process. Back at the police station, Oliver was formally charged with first-degree murder. During the interrogation, he continued to deny his involvement, claiming that Charmin had acted alone. However, the evidence was overwhelming. The notebook entries, Charmin's confession, and the forensic evidence all painted a clear picture of his guilt. The police believed that Oliver had manipulated Charmin into helping him with his plan, using her troubled past and emotional attachment to him. The detectives continued to piece together the events leading up to the murder. They learned that Oliver had meticulously planned the crime, ensuring that Charmin would have an alibi and that evidence would point away from him initially. His cold and calculated approach made the crime even more chilling. With Oliver in custody, the police shifted their focus to preparing for the upcoming trial. They were determined to ensure that both Oliver and Charmin would face the consequences of their actions. The arrest was a significant step towards justice for Caroline Stevens, but the case was far from over. The trial for the murder of Caroline Stevens began on November 15, 2017. The courtroom was packed with spectators, reporters, and members of Caroline's family. The prosecution, led by District Attorney Margaret Ellis, 45, presented a strong case against Dr. Oliver Stevens. Margaret was known for her meticulous approach and her passion for seeking justice. She argued that Oliver had orchestrated the murder to be with Charmin Briscoe, their former foster daughter, without any obstacles. The prosecution laid out the evidence in a clear and compelling manner. They presented the notebook entries written by Charmin, which detailed her frustrations with Caroline and hinted at a plan to make that bleep pay. They also showed the blood-stained gloves found in Charmin's apartment and the forensic analysis that linked them to Caroline's murder. Margaret emphasized Oliver's quick marriage to Charmin just days after the murder, portraying it as proof of his motive. The defense, led by attorney Jonathan Ray 50, faced an uphill battle. Jonathan was a seasoned lawyer known for his calm demeanor and strategic thinking. He argued that Charmin acted alone out of jealousy and that Oliver had no part in the crime. The defense attempted to discredit Charmin's confession, suggesting that she had been coerced by the police. Jonathan also tried to cast doubt on the forensic evidence, claiming that it was circumstantial and did not directly link Oliver to the murder. Caroline's family watched the trial with a mix of grief and determination. Her brother, David Miller, often spoke to reporters during breaks, expressing hope that justice would be served. The emotional toll on the family was evident as they listened to the details of Caroline's brutal death. After several weeks of testimony and evidence, the jury deliberated for 2 days. On December 10, 2017, they returned with a verdict. Oliver Stevens was found guilty of first-degree murder. The courtroom was tense as the verdict was read. Oliver remained stoic, showing little reaction. Charmin, who was also present, broke down in tears. The judge sentenced Oliver to life in prison without the possibility of parole. The severity of the sentence reflected the heinous nature of the crime and the premeditation involved. Charmin received a lighter sentence of 25 years for her role in the murder, acknowledging her cooperation with the police. The verdict brought a sense of closure to Caroline's family, though the pain of her loss remained. They felt justice had been served, but the memories of Caroline would always linger. The community of Corvallis was shocked by the events, but many were relieved that the case had been resolved. The trial and its outcome had a profound impact on those involved. Caroline's friends and family found some solace in the verdict, while Oliver and Charmin faced the consequences of their actions. The story of Caroline Stevens' murder served as a reminder of the depths of human cruelty and the importance of seeking justice. After the trial, life in Corvallis began to settle into a new normal, though the impact of the case lingered for everyone involved. Dr. Oliver Stevens was serving his life sentence at the Oregon State Penitentiary. The prison, located in Salem, became his new home, where he would spend the rest of his life behind bars. Oliver's former colleagues and students at Oregon State University were shocked and saddened by his conviction. The university had to manage the fallout from the scandal, including addressing concerns from students and faculty about their safety and the integrity of their institution. Charmin Briscoe, sentenced to 25 years, was transferred to the Coffee Creek Correctional Facility, a women's prison near Wilsonville. Charmin's life in prison was difficult. She faced challenges adapting to her new environment and had to cope with the consequences of her actions. The media continued to follow her story, and she became a figure of public interest, often highlighted in local news reports. For the Stevens friends and supporters, the case became a rallying point for greater awareness and support for victims of crime. Various memorials and events were held in Caroline's honor, helping to keep her memory alive and ensure that her legacy of compassion and service continued. As time went on, life in Corvallis gradually returned to its normal pace, but the story of Caroline Stevens and the dramatic events surrounding her murder remained a significant part of the town's history. The trial and its outcome served as a stark reminder of the importance of justice and the impact of crime on individuals and communities alike. Harold Hal Griffin was a man many people in Kokomo, Indiana, knew well. At 63 years old, he had spent over 3 decades managing a grocery store chain that was popular in the community. Hal had a way of making people feel welcome, whether they were customers or employees. His friendly smile and sharp business skills made him respected in his hometown. After retiring, Hal moved to Prescott, Arizona, in search of a quieter life. Prescott, known for its mild weather and beautiful landscapes, was a popular destination for retirees. Hal settled into this peaceful town, spending his days gardening, attending local events, and relaxing. But Hal's life wasn't as simple as it appeared. His marriage to Mary had been troubled for years, mostly because of her declining health. Mary had been diagnosed with brain cancer, which had taken a toll on both of them. Hal, feeling lonely and emotionally drained, started looking for comfort elsewhere. He began seeing other men for sex, But only a few close friends knew about this very secret part of his life. Hall found particular comfort in sexual relationships with two other men, Leonard Lenny Bartholf and Pete Peterson. Lenny, a 60-year-old retired banker from Minnesota, had been Hall's first male lover. Lenny was deeply attached to Hall, believing they would eventually be together once Mary's health declined further. The third person in this love triangle was Pete Peterson, a 56-year-old insurance adjuster who also lived in Prescott. Pete's relationship with Hall was more casual, with the two meeting every now and then for quick sex, but he secretly hoped that Hall would leave both Mary and Lenny to start a new life with him. In the days leading up to his death, Hall seemed preoccupied. He had confided in a close friend that he was considering making big changes in his life. Hall was torn between his responsibilities at home and his desires for freedom and happiness. Unfortunately, his hopes for a fresh start would be cut short by the tragic events that soon unfolded. On the afternoon of July 15, 2011, Prescott, Arizona, was experiencing its typical summer weather, hot and dry, with temperatures reaching the mid-90s. It was around 2:30 p.m. when Mary Griffin, Hall's wife, realized she hadn't seen him all day. This was unusual, as Hall usually spent his mornings tending to his garden or reading the newspaper on the porch. Concerned, Mary decided to check the house, starting with the kitchen, where Hall often prepared their lunch. As she entered the kitchen, Mary was met with a scene of horror. Hall was lying on the floor in a pool of blood, his body still and lifeless. He had been stabbed multiple times in the chest and abdomen. The kitchen was in disarray, with broken dishes and overturned chairs scattered around the room, evidence of a violent struggle. The sight overwhelmed Mary, who was already frail due to her illness. Her initial reaction was shock, followed by a wave of panic. Struggling to maintain her composure, Mary managed to dial 911, her voice trembling as she reported what she had found. The 911 operator, sensing the urgency in Mary's voice, immediately dispatched police and emergency medical services to the Griffin residence. Paramedics arrived within minutes, but it was too late. Hall had been dead for several hours by the time they arrived. Mary, distraught and in shock, was taken to the hospital as a precaution. She was unable to provide much information to the authorities, her mind struggling to process the horrific scene she had just witnessed. The discovery of Hall's body sent shockwaves through the quiet Prescott community. Neighbors, who were used to the tranquility of their retirement paradise, were suddenly thrust into the middle of a murder investigation. As news spread, the reality of the situation began to sink in. Something terrible had happened in the Griffin household, and the search for answers was just beginning. Detective Robert Bob Jensen arrived at the Griffin residence on the afternoon of July 15, 2011. The summer heat was intense, with temperatures soaring into the mid-90s, typical for Prescott, Arizona in July. Jensen was a seasoned investigator with the Prescott Police Department, known for his methodical approach and keen attention to detail. He had seen his fair share of crime scenes, but the brutal nature of this one immediately struck him as a crime of passion. The kitchen was in chaos. Blood splattered the walls and floor, and a pool of blood surrounded Hall Griffin's lifeless body. A kitchen knife, the apparent murder weapon, lay nearby, covered in blood. The scene suggested a violent struggle. Broken dishes, an overturned chair, and scattered items indicated that Hall had fought desperately for his life. Jensen carefully stepped around the evidence, noting every detail. He knew that every piece of the puzzle could be crucial in solving this case. Jensen was joined by Officer Ophelia Lopez, a young but sharp member of the team, who had a reputation for her quick thinking. Together, they began their initial assessment of the scene. Jensen noticed that the house showed no signs of forced entry, which led him to believe that Hall had known his attacker. The struggle appeared to have been contained to the kitchen, with no evidence of the fight spilling into other parts of the house. As the detectives worked, forensic technicians arrived to document the scene. They took photographs, collected samples of the blood, and dusted for fingerprints. The technicians also swabbed the knife for DNA evidence, hoping to find something that would lead them to the killer. Jensen observed as they bagged the knife and other key pieces of evidence, knowing these would be crucial in the investigation. Outside, the neighbors were beginning to gather, whispering among themselves. Prescott was a quiet town, and a murder like this was a rare and shocking event. As Jensen stepped out to speak with some of the onlookers, he was met with a mix of fear and curiosity. Many knew Hal as a friendly, easygoing man, making the violent nature of his death even more unsettling. Back inside, Jensen and Lopez continued their examination, They were particularly interested in the timeline of events. When had Hal last been seen alive, and who could have had access to the house during that time? Jensen made a mental note to interview Hal's wife, Mary, as soon as she was able to speak, knowing that her testimony could provide crucial insights. The investigation was just beginning, but one thing was clear to Jensen: this was no random act of violence. The ferocity of the attack and the lack of forced entry pointed to a killer with a personal connection to Hal, someone who had been driven by strong emotions. The task now was to uncover who that person was and why they had turned to murder. Leonard "Lenny" Bartholf, 60, was the first person of interest in the investigation. Lenny had been living with Hal and Mary Griffin for nearly a year under the pretense of being a down-on-his-luck friend whom Hal had taken in. In reality, Lenny was much more than a house guest. He was Hal's secret gay lover. Their relationship had been ongoing for several years, beginning back in Indiana before Hal's retirement. Lenny, a retired banker, was known for his meticulous and conservative nature. He had worked at the same bank for 40 years before retiring to Arizona. Lenny had always been a reserved and disciplined man, qualities that had served him well in his banking career. However, beneath this calm exterior, Lenny was deeply in love with Hal and harbored intense feelings of jealousy and insecurity. He had hoped that once Mary's health declined further and she succumbed to her cancer, he and Hal could be together openly. Lenny was protective of Hal, often to the point of possessiveness, and he had struggled with the knowledge that Hal had sexual relationships with other men, particularly Pete Peterson. Detective Robert Jensen and Officer Ophelia Lopez brought Lenny in for questioning on July 16, the day after Hal's body was found. The interrogation took place in a small, windowless room at the Prescott Police Department. Lenny appeared nervous but composed, his hands shaking slightly as he answered their questions. Jensen, who was known for his calm yet probing interrogation style, began by asking Lenny about his relationship with Hal. Lenny hesitated but eventually admitted to their romantic involvement, his voice cracking as he spoke. He insisted that he loved Hal deeply and would never hurt him. Jensen then asked Lenny about his whereabouts on the night of the murder. Lenny claimed that he had been asleep in his room and had not heard anything unusual. However, Jensen noticed that Lenny's story had some inconsistencies. For example, Lenny couldn't explain why he hadn't heard the struggle that had clearly taken place in the kitchen, just a few rooms away. When pressed further, Lenny became agitated, raising his voice and demanding to know why he was being accused of something so horrible. The detectives also asked Lenny about his relationship with Pete Peterson, Hal's other lover. Lenny's demeanor shifted noticeably at the mention of Pete. His jealousy was evident as he spoke bitterly about Pete, accusing him of trying to come between him and Hal. Lenny's resentment towards Pete was clear, and it gave the detectives a possible motive: jealousy and fear of losing Hal. Despite Lenny's emotional responses and the inconsistencies in his story, he denied any involvement in Hal's murder. The detectives released him after several hours of questioning, but he remained a key suspect. Jensen couldn't shake the feeling that Lenny was hiding something, and he knew they needed more evidence to either prove or disprove Lenny's involvement in the crime. The second suspect in Hal Griffin's murder was his wife, Mary Griffin. At 61, Mary had once been a vibrant and active woman, known around Prescott for her involvement in local church activities and charity work. However, her life had taken a drastic turn recently after being diagnosed with brain cancer. The illness had left her weak and dependent on Hal for nearly all her daily needs. Though Mary had always been sweet-natured, the cancer had taken a toll on her memory and cognitive abilities, often leaving her confused and forgetful. Despite her illness, Mary's love for Hal was undeniable. Their marriage had transitioned to become more of a caretaker relationship, with Hal dedicating much of his time to looking after her. However, those close to the couple had noticed that Mary seemed troubled in the months leading up to Hal's death. She had moments of clarity where she appeared aware that something was amiss in her marriage, but she couldn't fully grasp the reality of Hal's secret life. Detective Robert Jensen and Officer Ophelia Lopez decided to question Mary on July 17, 2011, 2 days after Hal's body was found. They visited her at the hospital where she was being treated for the moment. A hospital was a quiet, sterile environment, far removed from the violence seen at the Griffin home. Mary was resting in bed, looking frail and tired, but she managed a weak smile when the detectives entered the room. Jensen approached the interview with care, knowing that Mary's mental state could affect her responses. He began by asking her about her relationship with Hal. Mary spoke lovingly of her husband, recalling their early years together and how he had always been there for her during her illness. She mentioned how Hal had become more distant recently, often leaving the house for long periods without explaining where he had been. However, she dismissed these thoughts, attributing them to her illness rather than anything Hal had done. The detectives then asked Mary about the night of the murder. Mary struggled to remember specific details, a common symptom of her condition. She couldn't recall hearing anything unusual that night and was genuinely shocked when she learned of Hal's death. Tears welled up in her eyes as she expressed disbelief that someone could harm the man who had cared for her so lovingly. When asked if she knew about Hal's relationships with other men, Mary seemed confused. She hesitated, then shook her head, saying that Hal had always been devoted to her. However, Jensen noted that Mary's confusion could be masking deeper emotions, perhaps a buried awareness of Hal's affairs or a fear that she wasn't the only one in his life. Despite her frail condition, Mary remained a suspect, if only because she was Hal's wife and had the closest relationship with him. However, the detectives knew that without clear evidence or a more coherent testimony, it would be difficult to build a case against her. For now, they would have to keep looking for more concrete leads. The third suspect in Hal Griffin's murder was Pete Peterson, a 56-year-old insurance adjuster who had been living in Prescott for several years. Pete was known in the community for his calm, steady demeanor and his predictable routine. He was the kind of man who enjoyed a simple, quiet life, and he was often seen at local diners like Denny's or grabbing coffee at Dutch Brothers. Pete's involvement in a sexual relationship with Hal was not well known, but those who were aware of their relationship described it as mainly being casual sex, unlike Hal's more intense connection with Lenny Bartholf. Pete had been seeing Hal for about a year, meeting discreetly for sex whenever and wherever they could. To Pete, their relationship was more about companionship and physical comfort than deep emotional ties. He knew about Lenny and even saw him as competition, but he wasn't overly concerned. Pete had pushed Hal to leave Mary and Lenny behind and start fresh with him, but Hal had always been hesitant to make such a drastic move. On July 18, 2011, 3 days after Hal's body was discovered, detectives Robert Jensen and Ophelia Lopez brought Pete in for questioning. Pete arrived at the Prescott Police Department dressed neatly, his expression calm but wary. The detectives, aware of Pete's steady personality, expected him to be cooperative, but were prepared to dig deeper if needed. Jensen began the interview by asking Pete about his relationship with Hal. Pete was upfront about their sexual involvement, describing it as casual and admitting that they had seen each other off and on for sex for about a year. He spoke in a measured tone, careful with his words, and avoided giving too much detail about their relationship. When Jensen asked if Pete had known about Lenny, Pete's face hardened slightly. He acknowledged that he knew about Lenny, but claimed he didn't see him as a serious rival. Hal was his own man, Pete said. He loved who he loved. The conversation then turned to the night of the murder. Pete explained that he had been home alone, watching television, specifically reruns of Law and Order, Special Victims Unit on USA Network, and had gone to bed early. He insisted that he hadn't seen Hal that day and that they hadn't spoken for a few days before the murder. His alibi was simple, but the detectives couldn't find anything to directly contradict it. When pressed about his feelings towards Hal and the possibility of Hal leaving him for Lenny, Pete's calm exterior began to crack. He admitted that the idea of losing Hal had upset him, but he quickly composed himself, stating that he wasn't the kind of person to act out of anger. However, Jensen noticed a flicker of emotion in Pete's eyes, something that hinted at a deeper, more complex relationship with Hal than Pete was willing to admit. After several hours of questioning, the detectives released Pete. Although he had remained mostly calm and cooperative, they were left with a sense that there was more to his story. Pete's steady demeanor, while reassuring, also made it difficult to gauge his true feelings. The detectives knew they needed to keep an eye on Pete as they continued to unravel the tangled relationships surrounding Hal Griffin's death. On July 20, 2011, 5 days after Hal Griffin's body was discovered, the Prescott Police Department received a crucial lead in the case. The day was hot and dry, typical for an Arizona summer, with temperatures hovering around 95 degrees Fahrenheit. Detective Robert Jensen had just finished reviewing the initial reports when a call came in from a local hardware store, True Value, located off Gurley Street. The store manager reported that someone had found something unusual in the dumpster behind the store. Jensen and his partner, Officer Ophelia Lopez, quickly drove to the scene. The hardware store was a familiar spot in Prescott, known for its friendly service and wide selection of tools and supplies. When they arrived, the manager led them to the back of the store where the dumpsters were located. A smell of garbage and the buzz of flies filled the air as Tom pointed to a large black trash bag sitting on top of the pile. Inside the bag, Jensen and Lopez found a blood-stained shirt and a pair of gloves. The shirt was torn and soaked with blood, clearly connected to the violent crime that had taken place in Hal Griffin's home. The gloves were made of latex, the kind commonly used for cleaning or handling chemicals, but they were also smeared with dried blood. Jensen carefully bagged the items as evidence and immediately had them sent to the crime lab for analysis. While waiting for the results, the detectives reviewed the security footage from the hardware store. Unfortunately, the camera angle didn't capture the exact spot where the bag had been dumped, but it did show a shadowy figure moving near the dumpsters late at night. The footage was grainy, and the person's identity was unclear, but it gave the detectives a timeline for when the evidence was likely discarded. A few days later, the lab results came back, confirming that the blood on the shirt and gloves matched Hal Griffin's DNA. This was a significant breakthrough in the case, suggesting that the person who dumped the bag had been directly involved in the murder. The discovery also indicated that the killer had attempted to dispose of evidence in a hurry, possibly panicking after the crime. The police now had a strong piece of evidence that could link the suspects to the crime. Jensen and Lopez knew they were closing in on the truth, but they still needed to determine who had thrown the bag into the dumpster and why. The investigation intensified as they worked to connect this new evidence to one of the suspects they had already questioned. On July 24, 2011, just over a week after Hal Griffin's body was discovered, the Prescott Police Department made a breakthrough in the case. The analysis of the blood-stained shirt and gloves found in the True Value hardware store dumpster had revealed something crucial, a partial fingerprint on one of the latex gloves. After running the print through the national database, it matched Leonard "Lenny" Bartholf, Hal's longtime lover. Lenny Bartholf, a 60-year-old retired banker, had been living with Hal and his wife, Mary, under the guise of being a down-and-out man Hal had taken in. In reality, Lenny and Hal had been involved in a secret sexual relationship for several years, a fact that was unknown to most people in Prescott. Lenny was deeply in love with Hal and believed that once Mary's health deteriorated, they would be together openly. But Lenny had grown increasingly paranoid about Hal's other relationships, particularly with Pete Peterson, the calm, placid insurance adjuster who had been a casual sex partner of Hal's. On the night of July 15, Lenny had confronted Hal in the kitchen of their Prescott home. Lenny had heard rumors that Hal was planning to leave him and start a new life with Pete. Fueled by jealousy and fear of losing the only person he truly loved, Lenny demanded answers. Hal, feeling cornered, admitted that he had considered leaving Prescott with Pete. This confession pushed Lenny over the edge. In a fit of rage and heartbreak, he grabbed a kitchen knife and stabbed Hal multiple times in the chest and abdomen. After the murder, Lenny panicked. Realizing the gravity of what he had done, he attempted to clean up the scene, but the mess was too overwhelming. In his haste, he grabbed the blood-stained shirt and gloves, stuffed them into a trash bag, and drove to the True Value hardware store, where he dumped the bag in the dumpster. He hoped this would cover his tracks, but the discovery of the items led the police straight to him. On the afternoon of July 24, the police arrived at the Griffin home with an arrest warrant for Lenny. He was in the backyard, tending to Mary's garden, when detectives Robert Jensen and Ophelia Lopez approached him. Lenny didn't resist arrest. He was visibly shaken but showed no surprise when they informed him of the charges. He quietly admitted to the crime, saying he hadn't meant to kill Hal but couldn't control his anger. Hal's family, particularly Mary, was devastated by the arrest. Mary, still battling brain cancer, was in shock, unable to comprehend that her husband had been living a double life and that Lenny, whom she had trusted, was his killer. The news spread quickly through Prescott, shocking the small community that had known Hal as a friendly, outgoing retiree. The arrest of Lenny Bartholf marked the beginning of the end for this tragic case. The police had pieced together the puzzle, revealing a story of love, jealousy, and betrayal that had led to a deadly outcome. But the full story would only come to light in a courtroom, where Lenny would face justice for his actions. The trial of Leonard "Lenny" Bartholf began on October 3, 2011, in the Yavapai County Courthouse in Prescott, Arizona. The case had garnered attention, not only because of the brutal nature of the crime, but also due to the scandalous details of Hal Griffin's secret life that had come to light. The courtroom was packed with locals eager to delve into the story of love, betrayal, and murder in this quiet retirement community. The prosecution was led by District Attorney James McLean, a seasoned lawyer known for his no-nonsense approach in the courtroom. McLean, a 58-year-old with a reputation for being tough but fair, laid out a compelling case against Lenny. He argued that Lenny's actions were premeditated, driven by jealousy and a deep fear of abandonment. McLean detailed how Lenny had lived a double life, pretending to be a homeless man taken in out of charity, while secretly maintaining a romantic relationship with Hall. He painted a picture of a man who couldn't bear the thought of losing Hall to Pete Peterson, and in a fit of rage, had murdered the very person he claimed to love. The defense, led by public defender Frankie Clark, took a different approach. Clark, a 42-year-old lawyer with a calm demeanor, argued that Lenny's actions were not premeditated, but were instead the result of a momentary lapse in control. She portrayed Lenny as a man who had been deeply in love, confused, and heartbroken by Hall's admission that he was planning to leave him. Clark emphasized Lenny's clean record, his service at the bank for 40 years, and his role as a quiet, disciplined member of society who had never shown signs of violence before this incident. She appealed to the jury's sympathy, asking them to consider the emotional turmoil that had led Lenny to commit the crime. Throughout the trial, Hal Griffin's family watched the proceedings with a mix of sadness and anger. Mary Griffin, frail and devastated, sat quietly as the details of her husband's double life were exposed to the world. The betrayal was almost as painful as the murder itself, and her emotions were evident as she listened to the arguments. After 2 weeks of testimony and evidence, the jury reached a verdict. On October 17, 2011, Leonard Bartholf was found guilty of second-degree murder. The jury believed that while Lenny's actions were driven by emotion, they were still deliberate and intentional. Judge Martin Harris sentenced Lenny to 25 years in prison without the possibility of parole, a sentence that reflected the seriousness of the crime but also took into account Lenny's previously clean record and the emotional circumstances surrounding the case. The sentence brought a sense of closure to Hal Griffin's family, though it didn't erase the pain of losing him. For Mary Griffin, it was a bittersweet moment. Justice had been served, but the cost had been the shattering of the life she thought she knew. As for the Prescott community, the trial and its outcome left a lasting impact, a reminder that even in the most peaceful places, dark secrets can lead to tragic consequences. After the trial, life for those involved in the tragic events of July 2011 changed dramatically. Danielle "Danny" Scale, a vivacious and outgoing 42-year-old woman, was widely known for her charm, wit, and remarkable success in the real estate industry. Residing in the picturesque coastal city of Newport Beach, California, Danny thrived on closing deals and took great pride in her professional achievements. However, beneath her confident exterior, Danny grappled with lingering doubts about her marriage to Jonathan Scale, her enigmatic husband, and questioned the authenticity of his intentions. In November of 2011, Danny's life was forever ended, releasing the dark secrets lurking within her seemingly idyllic marriage. The affluent community of Newport Beach, known for its luxurious estates and pristine beaches, became the backdrop for a chilling tale of deception and violence. As we delve into Danny's story, it is crucial to understand the context in which it unfolded. Newport Beach, with its gleaming yachts and upscale boutiques, had long been a haven for the wealthy and influential. Famous as the setting for the famous Fox teen drama, The O.C., the city's close proximity to Los Angeles also made it an attractive destination for those seeking a blend of opulence and tranquility. Danny, with her impeccable taste and eye for luxury, effortlessly navigated the social circles of Newport Beach. She was a regular attendee at exclusive charity galas and frequented the trendy cafes that lined the city's bustling streets. Her magnetic personality and striking beauty garnered attention wherever she went, making her a sought-after companion among the city's elite. However, beneath the glamorous facade, Danny's personal life was shrouded in uncertainty. She often confided in close friends about her concerns regarding Jonathan, her husband of just 6 months, a man whose intentions remained elusive. Despite their outwardly happy appearance, whispers of marital discord and hidden secrets circulated among Newport Beach's tight-knit community. On a chilly November evening in 2011, a peaceful neighborhood in Newport Beach, California was shattered by a heinous crime that would forever change the lives of its residents. The vibrant and bustling community, known for its picturesque beaches and luxurious lifestyle,
was now engulfed in a cloud of fear and uncertainty. Danielle "Danny" Scale, a 42-year-old woman with a successful career in real estate, had become the victim of a brutal and senseless act of violence. As the news of her tragic demise spread like wildfire, shockwaves reverberated through the tight-knit community, leaving its residents in a state of disbelief. It was Robbie Matheson, a close friend, neighbor, and local fashion designer, who stumbled upon the gruesome scene that fateful evening. Robbie, known for his impeccable taste and keen eye for detail, had dropped by Danny's house for a friendly visit. Little did he know that he would soon be thrust into a nightmare. As he entered Danny's opulent home, the air was heavy with an eerie silence. The house, adorned with expensive furniture and tasteful artwork, had an unsettling stillness that sent a chill down Robbie's spine. He called out for Danny, but there was no response. Concerned, he cautiously made his way upstairs, the creaking of the wooden steps echoing through the empty hallway. Upon reaching the master bedroom, Robbie's heart sank. There, lying lifeless on the bed, was Danny. Her once vibrant and radiant presence had been extinguished, leaving behind a void that could never be filled. The sight was both shocking and heart-wrenching, and Robbie's mind raced with a flood of emotions. In a state of panic, Robbie immediately dialed 911, his voice trembling as he relayed the horrifying discovery to the authorities. Within minutes, police cars and ambulances descended upon the quiet neighborhood, their flashing lights illuminating the darkness of the night. The once peaceful neighborhood now bore the weight of a dark secret, and its residents grappled with the realization that evil could lurk even in the most idyllic of places. November 2011, a month that should have been filled with anticipation for the upcoming holiday season, had now become a haunting reminder of the fragility of life. As news of Danielle "Danny" Scale's tragic death spread throughout the affluent community of Newport Beach, California, the police wasted no time in launching a thorough investigation into the chilling crime. Seasoned investigators Detective Morgan Hatoyevsky and Detective Polita Rodriguez were assigned to unravel the mystery surrounding Danny's untimely demise. Upon arriving at the crime scene, the detectives were met with a somber atmosphere that hung heavy in the air. The bedroom, once a sanctuary for Danny, now held the grim evidence of a violent struggle. With a keen eye for detail, Detective Hatoyevsky and Detective Rodriguez meticulously combed through the room, searching for any clues that could provide insight into the identity of the perpetrator. The absence of forced entry puzzled the investigators. How could someone have gained access to Danny's bedroom without leaving behind any trace? The detectives examined the windows and doors, meticulously checking for signs of tampering. They even enlisted the help of forensic experts to dust for fingerprints and collect DNA samples, hoping to find a breakthrough. As Detective Hatoyevsky and Detective Rodriguez tirelessly pursued leads and followed every possible avenue of inquiry, they remained determined to bring closure to Danny's grieving loved ones. The clock was ticking, and the pressure to solve the case mounted with each passing day. Jonathan Scale, a 55-year-old man, emerged as the primary suspect in the murder investigation of his wife, Danielle "Danny" Scale. With his suave demeanor and a facade of success, Jonathan managed to charm those around him, concealing his true nature as a master manipulator. As the investigation deepens, detectives are determined to uncover the truth behind Danny's tragic demise. Detective Morgan Hatoyevsky and Detective Polita Rodriguez, seasoned investigators with a wealth of experience, took charge of the case. Their first focus was Jonathan, the man closest to Danny. With their investigative instincts honed, the detectives meticulously interrogated him, hoping to peel back the layers of deception and uncover the truth. Jonathan, a self-proclaimed entrepreneur, had carefully crafted an image of success and prosperity. However, the detectives soon discovered a darker side to his seemingly perfect life. Despite being refused permission to look into his financial records, the police managed to uncover a web of deceit and mounting debts. It became clear that Jonathan's lavish lifestyle was built on a foundation of lies and borrowed money. As the detectives probed further, they unearthed a series of suspicious activities in the months leading up to Danny's murder. Bank statements revealed large withdrawals and unexplained transfers from Danny's funds, raising red flags. Witnesses also came forward,
recounting instances of Jonathan's volatile temper and controlling behavior towards Danny. The investigation took a dramatic turn when an anonymous tip led the detectives to a storage unit rented under Jonathan's name. Inside, they discovered a hidden cache of evidence, including a blood-stained shirt, something he claimed was from an accident playing basketball. The discovery sent shockwaves through the investigative team, providing a crucial link between Jonathan and the crime scene. The truth, hidden beneath layers of deception, was slowly being unraveled, bringing justice closer for Danny and closure for her loved ones. As the investigation into the murder of Danielle, Danny Scale unfolded, another person of interest emerged, Jason J-Boy Hermosa, a 19-year-old with a taste for the finer things in life. Jason was no stranger to the affluent community of Newport Beach, California, where he was something of a modern-day male geisha to Orange County's elite. A frequent guest at high-end parties and exclusive events, his striking good looks and charismatic personality made him a sought-after companion among the elite. But behind the glamorous facade, Jason possessed a manipulative and controlling nature. He saw Jonathan Scale, Danny's husband and his current lover, as his ticket to a world of luxury. Their secret affair had been brewing for months, hidden beneath the surface of Newport Beach's pristine reputation. The affair was a dangerous game of sex and deceit, with Jason yearning for the wealth and status that Jonathan seemed to possess effortlessly. The police, eager to uncover any connections to the crime, focused their attention on Jason. They brought him in for questioning, hoping to peel back the layers of deception and uncover the truth. Jason's response was a volatile mix of anger and denial. He vehemently distanced himself from any involvement in Danny's murder, swearing on his life that he had nothing to do with her or the heinous act. His alibi, he claimed, was attending a high-profile charity event on the night of the crime. He even provided photographs and news articles from that evening as evidence, showcasing his presence among the city's elite. The detectives scrutinized the evidence, carefully examining the photographs and articles. They cross-referenced Jason's alibi with witness statements and surveillance footage from the event. The pieces of the puzzle began to come together, painting a picture of a young man desperate to escape his own reality and immerse himself in a world of opulence. The case of Danielle, Danny Scale's murder was far from over. With two suspects in the spotlight, the detectives faced the daunting task of unraveling the truth from a web of lies and deception. As they dug deeper, they would soon discover that the secrets hidden in the shadows of Newport Beach were darker and more sinister than anyone could have imagined. In a stunning turn of events, the investigation into the murder of Danielle, Danny Scale took a dramatic twist when a hidden safe was discovered by Robbie Matheson, a close friend and neighbor of the victim. This breakthrough occurred on an unusually rainy day in Newport Beach, California, in November of 2011. Inside the hidden safe, the police found a treasure trove of financial records that exposed a web of deceit and fraud orchestrated by Jonathan Scale, Danny's husband. The records revealed him as the head of a multi-million-dollar Ponzi scheme that spanned across 6 states, involving real estate ventures, a chain of daycares, and even a network of strip clubs. This shocking revelation left the investigators in utter disbelief, as they realized they were dealing with a criminal empire far more complex than they had initially anticipated. The evidence uncovered in the safe detailed Jonathan's elaborate scheme, which had ensnared unsuspecting investors and left a trail of financial ruin in its wake. The records showed falsified documents, forged signatures, and a complex network of shell companies designed to mask the illegal activities. The police now had a clearer understanding of Jonathan's motive for silencing Danny, as she had become a potential threat to his fraudulent empire. As news of the discovery spread, media outlets seized upon the story, dubbing it the Newport Beach Ponzi scandal. Journalists delved into the intricate details of the scheme, uncovering the extent of Jonathan's fraudulent activities, revealing him to be a fake millionaire. The scandal sent shockwaves through the community, tarnishing the reputation of Newport Beach, an affluent coastal city known for its picturesque beaches and luxurious lifestyle. With the newfound evidence, the police intensified their efforts to bring Jonathan to justice. They meticulously analyzed the financial records, cross-referencing them with other ongoing investigations into similar Ponzi schemes. The collaboration between law enforcement agencies from multiple states became crucial in unraveling the full extent of Jonathan's criminal activities. The investigation into the murder of Danny Scale had now evolved into a high-profile case that captivated the nation. The media circus surrounding the Newport Beach Ponzi scandal only added to the pressure on the police to solve the murder and dismantle Jonathan's fraudulent empire. Ilea Evans, a 24-year-old activist with a strong sense of social justice, found herself entangled in the investigation surrounding the murder of Danny Scale. Ilea, known for her unwavering determination and passion for social causes, had long suspected Jonathan Scale, Danny's husband, of being involved in illicit activities. Her suspicions were fueled by rumors, later proven true, circulating in the close-knit rich community of Newport Beach, California. On a chilly November morning in 2011, Ilea was called in for questioning by the police. The interrogation room was dimly lit, casting long shadows on the walls. Detective Morgan Hatoyevsky, a seasoned investigator, sat across from her, his piercing gaze fixed on her every move. Ilea, dressed in her signature black hoodie and worn-out sneakers, maintained an air of defiance as she answered the detective's questions. She vehemently denied any involvement in Danny's murder, her voice quivering with a mix of anger and determination. "I may be an activist, but I would never resort to violence," she declared, her words echoing through the sterile room. The detective pressed on, probing for any evidence that could link Ilea to the crime. He raised his eyebrows, his skepticism evident, as he presented her with photographs taken at a protest she had organized against Jonathan's alleged fraudulent activities. Ilea's eyes narrowed, her resolve growing stronger as she explained, "I may have been vocal about his corruption, but I believe in exposing the truth through peaceful means." As the interrogation continued,
Ilea recounted her encounters with Jonathan, describing his extravagant lifestyle and the aura of power that surrounded him. She spoke of the rumors she had heard about his involvement in an interstate network of strip clubs and a chain of daycares, all part of an elaborate Ponzi scheme. Her words painted a vivid picture of a man consumed by greed and willing to go to great lengths to protect his empire. Despite the lack of concrete evidence linking Ilea to the crime, the police were determined to explore every lead. They scrutinized her alibi, interviewed her acquaintances, and searched for any connection she might have had to the murder. Ilea remained steadfast, her unwavering belief in justice propelling her forward. In a stunning turn of events, the police cracked the case of Danny Scale's murder and apprehended the culprit responsible for this heinous crime. Jonathan Scale, the victim's own husband, was taken into custody, facing charges related to her untimely demise. The breakthrough in the investigation came when a secret audio tape was discovered, capturing Danny's chilling words about her husband. "My husband is a fake millionaire." This revelation provided a crucial piece of evidence that helped connect the dots and shed light on the sinister truth behind Danny's murder. Jonathan, who presented himself as a successful entrepreneur, was revealed to be living a life built on lies and deceit. Behind his polished exterior, he had been running a multi-million-dollar Ponzi scheme, defrauding unsuspecting thousands of victims across 6 states. Shockingly, his fraudulent activities extended beyond real estate, encompassing a chain of daycares and even a network of strip clubs. The police, armed with this newfound evidence, were able to establish Jonathan's motive for silencing his wife. By eliminating Danny, he sought to protect his ill-gotten wealth and maintain his false image as a wealthy individual. However, his carefully constructed facade crumbled when the police uncovered the truth. The arrest of Jonathan Scale sent shockwaves through the community of Newport Beach, California. This affluent neighborhood, known for its picturesque landscapes and luxurious lifestyle, was rocked by this dark and disturbing crime. The residents, who once admired Jonathan for his apparent success, are now left reeling from the realization that they were living alongside a master manipulator and a cold-blooded murderer. The courtroom was filled with anticipation as the trial of Jonathan Scale, the man accused of orchestrating the murder of his wife, Danny Scale, reached its climax. The prosecution, led by the determined and passionate prosecutor, Dana Chiu, meticulously presented a compelling case against Jonathan. The defense, represented by the skilled attorney, Reynolds Bastani, fought tooth and nail to protect Jonathan's interests. Throughout the trial, the courtroom was captivated by the testimonies of witnesses and the presentation of evidence. The prosecution called upon Detective Morgan Hatoyevsky and Detective Polita Rodriguez, the seasoned investigators who meticulously combed through the crime scene, to testify. They recounted the chilling details of the crime scene and the painstaking efforts they undertook to uncover the truth. The defense, on the other hand, sought to cast doubt on the evidence presented by the prosecution. They called upon expert witnesses to challenge the credibility of certain pieces of evidence, attempting to create reasonable doubt in the minds of the jurors. However, their efforts were met with skepticism as the prosecution skillfully dismantled their arguments.
After weeks of intense deliberation, the jury finally reached a verdict. The tension in the courtroom was palpable as the foreperson stood up to deliver the verdict. Guilty. The word reverberated through the room, leaving Jonathan Scales stunned. His carefully constructed facade crumbled before his eyes as the reality of his actions sank in. The sentencing, which took place a few weeks later, marked the end of Jonathan's reign of deception. The judge, taking into account the severity of the crime and Jonathan's lack of remorse, handed down a sentence of life behind bars, a fitting punishment for a man who had shattered the lives of those who loved him. As the trial came to a close, the impact of the verdict rippled through the lives of the victims' friends and family. The trial served as a stark reminder of the devastating consequences of greed and the lengths some individuals would go to protect their secrets. Following the conclusion of the trial, the lives of those involved in the case took divergent paths. Jonathan Scales, the mastermind behind the murder of his wife, faced the consequences of his heinous actions as he began his sentence behind bars. The courtroom was abuzz with a mix of emotions as the guilty verdict for his Ponzi scheme was announced, marking the end of Jonathan's reign of deception. Meanwhile, the dedicated police investigators, Detective Morgan Hatoyevsky and Detective Polita Rodriguez, continued their tireless pursuit of justice. They remained committed to ensuring that no stone was left unturned in their quest for truth. Their unwavering determination and meticulous attention to detail were instrumental in bringing Jonathan to justice. In the aftermath of the trial, the community of Newport Beach began to slowly regain its sense of security. The shocking murder had sent shockwaves through the close-knit neighborhood, leaving residents on edge. With Jonathan Scales behind bars, a collective sigh of relief could be felt as the community began to rebuild and restore its once tranquil atmosphere, but not before drawing attention to the intricacies of the criminal justice system and the devastating consequences of greed. The case of Danny Scales, the woman whose dying words exposed her husband's web of lies, serves as a chilling reminder of the darkness that can lurk beneath the surface of seemingly perfect lives. In the affluent city of Newport Beach, a community shattered by deceit and violence learned that even the most charming facade can hide the most sinister secrets.